refilled my water.
Hello, everybody. If it's Wednesday, it's Warhammer, and that means it's time for another episode of Warhammer Weekly. And to answer the questions, yes, we are late because of Tom. We're back to exactly what we always have been. It's Tom making us late. How you doing, Tom?
Hello, friends.
Good to have you back, buddy.
Hey, I'm not overexposed. That's part of what the lateness was. It was like, I'm going to fix it. I had to move like a display board and like a display board size like light box, and we're here. I'm good.
Prior planning prevents poor performance.
Whatever.
Okay.
I don't care.
Also joining us this week, it's Steve Herner. Steve, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, how are you guys? Thanks for having me on.
Brother, we are always glad to have you back on the show. Herner of the Holy Hammer crew, Holy Havoc, Holy Wars, runs two of the best tournaments in the U.S.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
A man who makes terrain I am forever jealous of. If you've never seen or played on Steve's boards, you are honestly missing out. I will say that. Absolutely true.
Thanks. Thank you. Thanks for that. I appreciate that.
It's true. You're just making his events fill up that much faster, Vince.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know if we can be much faster. Last one, it was crazy.
We got to get to an AdeptCon-like thing where events sell out like in the first 2 minutes of them going online.
Yeah, we haven't gone.
That's about where we're at,
yet, but we're close. We're close. It was crazy. Yeah, so we're, I believe it or not, hey, I'll give you some breaking news. I've been flirting with the idea of a third event, so there you go. Yeah. So who knows?
Are you thinking summer, like July, or when are you thinking?
Oh, we lost him. He froze.
Nope. No,
he's back. You're back.
I'm back.
So when?
That was my wife saying what? She heard that and she's like,
I'm gonna cut the internet.
Yeah, she hit the internet on the internet button. Exactly.
Right. What did you have a question?
Yeah, I asked. So when are you thinking? Summer?
No, I wouldn't want to compete against Domus and Midwest Meltdown. I'm not gonna say when.
Yeah, he's not foolish enough to put himself on the hook.
Nope.
Good man.
It kind of I've been toying with the idea, and
how would, so then let me ask this for breaking news. So sure. How would that event distinguish itself from your other two events?
Well, that's a great question. So the first off, Holy Wars is the 15 unique tables and scenarios and all that. And then you've got Holy Havoc, which is our team event. And then this one, I'm thinking it would be GHB2 inspired, maybe something more hero-esque driven, story throughout with your heroes, or possibly even something like a some type of siege mechanic, maybe. Like
a map campaign-esque?
Yeah, exactly. It's something
I love language.
I've always wanted to do something along those lines for the tournaments.
Yeah.
But I think with the with GHB2 coming and the stuff that Jervis talked about today on the stream, it really kind of solidified the idea a little bit more in my head and kind of started to come into focus a little bit more. So
I'm well on my way to having my own full Dreadhold table.
Oh, good. Well, we could maybe we can work something out there, Tom.
Absolutely. Pat, we'll pack that up into my car, Tom. That'll work really well for that trip. So just add a whole Dreadhold. That'll be no issue. All right. Well, let's that's good news. Like, I feel like that's better breaking news than anything else we could say. So
no, that's
keep us in the loop, obviously, as it goes forward. You've got two very interested candidates on the show, and I suspect many interested people in the audience. But
that's amazing. Like, that is great news. You have no idea how much that warms my heart.
Absolutely. So, Tom, let's start with the rest of the news, buddy. What do we got?
This was a really good week for news.
Duh.
Yeah. Like, any other hot takes you want to share with the audience?
Like,
ooh, boy,
just so much. So how about you? Let's start with the rumor engine. Normally we normally start with day of and work backwards. So let's do rumor engine.
That's fine. We'll do the rumor engine. I've got it queued up, ready to go here. Okay. Now, have you seen it yet, Tom? Do you have any thoughts of what it is?
No, but I saw your note in the show notes that says parentheses Death Guard guy.
Oh, that was different notes.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Nope, I haven't seen this one yet.
Okay. Well, there you go. It's that. Yep.
That's a gun barrel.
I mean, sure, could be.
It is, because you have a sight,
There's
right?
a sight.
Yeah, like I've been painting let me say one thing. I've been painting a lot of gun barrels this last week. That's a gun barrel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, looks pretty low tech as far as a gun barrel goes. You got a little strappy strap. You've got some big old rivets.
Scryer?
Yep.
No, because they wouldn't have, I don't think they would have released a Allegiance in GHB2 if it was Scryer.
Like, in other words, you don't think we're getting a Clan Scryer release anytime soon?
Not immediate. Like, that's that's so much of what they've driven home in the interviews for GHB2 is that, like, we put what we could in there, and we'll put as much as we can next time. But like, so I got a distinct impression that like they're very sensitive with their space. I don't think they would be duplicating those resources. It's the same reason why, if indeed we are receiving a Nurgle Allegiance in the box, which in the Blight War box, you know, we're going to talk about that here in a minute.
Yep.
But we're getting Nurgle Allegiance in there. Why wouldn't they have also put it in the book? You see what I'm saying? Like, if they...
Sure. Yeah.
My feeling is it's a Necromunda sculpt. I saw a couple people in the audience also say that. And there used to be a Goliath like autocannon or something like that on one of the old metal ones that looked kind of like this.
Yep.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was that. Who knows with any of these. As a fun aside, here's our updated list. So this is all of the rumor engines. As a fun thing here, let's zoom in so everybody can see this. That's nice and high. I really like this one. I saved this image because this is so super high quality.
Yep.
Like you can zoom way in. You'll notice 3 of the rumor engines were this freaking snail rider. 3.
Yeah.
Boom. The chains.
Definitely not Dark Elf sea people.
And there was rumor that maybe the feet were possibly like a Clan Molder or something. I remember talking about that. I think I might have been on your show when we mentioned that.
Or a Nurgle Beast.
Right.
Beast of Nurgle.
Yeah.
But and then obviously the halo here is her, so that was one of them too. Which the common call. Tom was very much backing this being a high elf thing, or he did say or Stormcast, but he was hoping for elves. He was disappointed. But
well, like, let me just say this. You know, I'm not going to say Stormcast again, right?
Sure.
Like, because then it just looks like I'm a spiteful ass. It's like, oh, it's Stormcast again. Little I know, it was actually new Stormcast.
Sure. And these are the ones we still have unrevealed down here. These are the unresolved ones. Some interesting ones still on the list. A couple of these very much, I think, are the sort of sea dark elves.
Yeah.
Like this, and like 4 and 12 to me just are the dark sea Cthulhu, whatever elves. This is probably this has got to be the Skaven out of Shadespire. I mean, you know, I don't think that's really that mysterious. This I do think is the Death Guard guy that we just haven't seen a zoom in on yet, like one of the new Death Guard kits. And obviously this is these two are just plastic Sisters of Battle, so I'm excited about that. I mean, clearly that's what these are. So no question in anyone's mind as far as I'm concerned. So there we go. But yep. Everything else has now been answered. So these remain the mystery. We're at 17 currently that we don't know what they are. Quite a few still.
Yeah.
Both AOS and what's funny is how many of these look more fantasy-esque that haven't been answered.
Yeah.
Like all of this and that and that.
On number 9, are those leaves on that cloak?
They kind of look like it. You know, like that's what I had pointed out. Or that was my call out, by the way, Steve.
I think they are fur, but I like because they don't have any side veins. They would have veins on the side if they were leaves, a little bit.
Yeah.
So there you go. Yeah. So we'll see. Lot to still reveal, and they keep coming every week. So all right. But I just laughed when I saw that this guy was 3 of them. Like he just took out a chunk.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's our rumor engine. All right. What else you got, buddy?
So
you want to talk about Blight War?
Yeah,
Since
Blight War.
Mentioned Slug Boy.
Yeah, you mean Gary?
Gary, the slug rider, the snail rider. He's not a slug. He's a snail. He's got a shell.
Gary, by the way, for those of you who don't know, is SpongeBob SquarePants Sea Slug, and he looks remarkably similar to the model sculpting.
It certainly does.
Vince, do you have the contents of that box?
Oh boy, I can pull it up. Yes, absolutely.
No, it's okay. I already have. Like I have. I had it. What happened to it?
Obviously, it's a big box. There's a lot. A lot going on there.
So it's 160 US. It's it's a Stormcast Nurgle box. You know, we've long been hypothesizing that other boxes were coming, like other paired off. This is the first one that ever actually materialized. We thought there might be a Tzeentch box. Tzeentch didn't show up. And so there's a couple interesting things about this box.
So I've got it up on screen now, Tom.
I see it now. Yeah, I see it. One is that it has all the new Stormcast in it, which, like, for Stormcast players, it's really neat. It's like there's a bundled package, including a new Stormcast named hero. And yeah, it's pretty sweet. It's like most of the new release that came out this year for Stormcast. Maybe that's the key. Anyways, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, you're really just missing what, like, your Lord Aquilor.
Yeah, the Lord Aquilor.
That side. Yeah.
Yeah, like, and I was just thinking about, like, maybe with the large Stormcast release, we'll get a starter associated with that release. I don't know. And then we have basically the Nurgle getting started box. I mean, I don't know how else to describe it. It's the getting started box, every single sprue except for the hero, and in place of the Terabad Nurgle Herald is Gary.
Gary is, look, whatever you think of Gary, you must admit he's a significant upgrade from a Nurgle Herald. Like, come on, that Nurgle Herald is not great.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Deep commentary.
So I'm trying to control my rants.
I understand.
So the
number of predictions I saw about your rants during this episode, both in the comments and online. Yeah. And everybody knows you're a powder keg with just like the fuse 2 seconds from going.
Okay, so here's the deal.
Go for it, man.
Like, I really hope that they release a Nurgle book in the next month, because it looks to me as if what they've done is they've locked the Nurgle allegiance behind a paywall of a starter box. With a bunch of models that most Nurgle players already have, which is the Nurgle starter box, other than Gary. And my frustration is, like, we don't need more named characters. This is number 7 for Nurgle, for named unique characters that can't have items, that can't have a character trait.
I'm sorry. What is the number of Nurgle?
7 is the number of named characters.
Well, I understand that. What is the number of Nurgle?
It's 7. It's 7.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying.
Yes, we have like Epidemius and Horticulus, or whatever his name is, horticulture guy, and the 3 Magath Lords.
Gary.
And Blotkin,
we'll just call him Gary.
And Orgot's Gut Spume, and there's more chaos. There's more named characters in chaos in Nurgle than I think all of Order and Destruction combined.
Yeah, but Chaos always gets the love.
Like, how about you just give us
their named people don't die? That's a big advantage.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
it is.
Right.
Some nice new, like, you know, like there's one actual unit in Rotbringers, and okay. Anyways, I don't want to go into it. Needless to say, like, it seems like a missed opportunity.
Well, I'll say 2 things to that. One, I think that they would be foolish not to break this out in some way. So they will, like, and if they don't, the market will answer that, because the day this is, like, I shouldn't say the day, like 2 or 3 days after this comes out, it will be broken up on eBay at Bits Resellers to let you get at the Stormcast girl, to let you get at Snail Boy. And by the way, when those Bits Resellers crack these boxes and break them up and sell them, they also sell the books.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
yeah.
Now,
Awesome.
going
Yeah,
to the secondary market is not
yeah.
what I'm saying that should be their marketing strategy. I'm just
Yeah.
saying if that's like that is your fallback. My guess is we'll see some of this stuff broken out, and you'll see like a Nurgle something. Book,
Yeah, like
tome, little bit of release. Whatever.
I just don't know why we don't get a hardback book. Like that's all I want. Like a nice book, not a flimsy. Like I have the Spire of Dawn book, and I had. Anyways, sorry.
You're not gonna. There'll probably be a Nurgle book. I mean, this is Blight War. I mean, it's.
Yeah. I mean, it depends on how made. No, it's a starter box. It depends.
Well, okay, it's a starter box, yes, but I mean, it's going to have some scenarios in it. It's going to have the rules. It's going to have.
They said they're going to have some battalions.
Yeah.
But I mean, we have one new unit and a bunch of like defunct elite. Like, anyways, okay, I'm not going to go into it. You can't bait me, Steve. I'm not going to do it. Okay, what I'll say is this: I am excited about this box. Like, I was super excited. If you check out my Twitter feed when it dropped, like I retweeted it, and then I got to looking at it, and I was just like, yeah, that's $160 for a character and an allegiance rules.
Yeah, see, for me, it's a good deal, I think.
Well, I'll say if
the only unit I have are the Griffs. You know, that's the only unit I have for my Stormcast right now. So, and then you know, I could split the box with somebody who wants to play Nurgle, not me. You know, so I mean, it could be a decent deal. Although I'm not jumping at the bit to get it.
Yeah, I mean, if you can split this with somebody, or if you want the Stormcast, like for a Stormcast player who hasn't yet expanded their army but wants this stuff, this is especially if you can find somebody to split it with who will take the Nurgle, this is an awesome deal for you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It reminds me of the 40K box.
Yeah. 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 I mean, it's a starter. Like that's what this is. This is a normal starter. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Originally, I had been told that this was on like a limited release.
Oh, really?
Box, yeah, where they were only doing 2 waves, like 2 prints of it.
Oh.
But that may have changed. So I don't know. We'll see. Like somebody reached out to me afterwards, after that, like after the distributor initially said that.
So two printings, and then
we'll see.
You probably have to wait. Well, let's just take that out for a minute. I mean, like, so all right, so it's two printings, what, 8 months to a year before you maybe see the 2 named heroes on their own. Wow,
that's what I anticipated. Like, because that's what they did with like the Bloodsecrator Corgus Cole.
Oh yeah, like, that's true.
Like, so it could be a while before we see this stuff in standalone. Or it could be, as Vince said, in 2 weeks. You just never know.
Right, exactly. Like, it's either going to be 2 weeks or a year or 6 months or some other amount of time, because it's completely unknowable. If you shake the magic 8 ball, all you get is unclear, ask again later.
Curse you, GW. Just give it to us.
Like, that female Stormcast is awesome. Okay, like we have a picture.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. Like she's a great model.
Yeah, I'm gonna slide down to her real quick.
Conversion opportunities are all over. I mean, it's awesome what you could do with her.
Yeah.
Yes, and being at Gen Con this last weekend, obviously there was a lot of Shadespire going on.
Yep.
And I sat around and watching people play Shadespire for a little while. And I was just struck by how good that female Stormcast mini in the Shadespire box looks. And I have to agree with many people who have called out for this. I would love to see like another unit of, like a unit of female Liberator types or just body swaps I could get my hands on in some way. That would be pretty awesome. So I'm hoping to see that. It seems like you could use a lot of the same arm sprues and leg sprues. I don't know. Yeah. It's hard to say.
Yeah, let me say this. I'm stoked for this development with the Stormcast stuff. And again, next week in Nova, on the show today.
You mean next week?
No, on Warhammer TV today.
Jervis?
Jervis was amazing, by the way, but that's not what I was going to talk about. Pete said that he said they have big news dropping at Nova. So make sure you're there and da-da-da. So we may have a big rollout of Nurgle coming. They may be saving it. But again, let's just take has the let me ask this: has the Nurgle Space Marine Codex and all the stuff dropped yet for 40K?
It's this codex has not come out, but we have seen the cover. We have the release for information for it.
Right, and that's my point. When did that box drop?
Oh, the actual 40K box itself? What, 7 weeks ago now?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, it was a while ago.
Yeah, so what, 2-3 months? So, I mean, we could easily be into 2018 before we see a full Nurgle release. Like if
you mean
they
across both games? Or are you
yeah,
talking about...
no, I think we'll see a Nurgle. I think we'll see a Nurgle 40K release in the next month to the next couple weeks.
It is happening in the next. It is.
Like end of September. But
we already know that it's in September. Yeah.
There was like a 2-month spread. Like I could see them waiting until January to roll out Nurgle. And so I mean, it could be a while before we actually get like standalone contents or a book or an actual release or whatever. So I don't know. We'll see. Because I'm just pointing to like 40K. They waited a significant amount of time. It wouldn't surprise me if they did that as well for Nurgle. So I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, I'm excited about the box. I already have it on pre-order. But we'll see.
Sure. Nova will be interesting. Obviously, next week, just so everyone's clear, next week the show will be delayed. It will start very late. The GW seminar, where they're going to talk about stuff that Tom is alluding to, is from 7:30 to 10:30, if memory serves, on Wednesday. I'll be there. So we'll do the show immediately preceding the GW event. Yeah. So assume we'll start the show about 11, but that's going to depend on whatever. So I'm hoping that the internet isn't going to be as terrible as it was at Adepticon. We'll see how that plays out, but we're going to make some preparations. The other reason I'm not going to literally run straight out and do it is because I want to make sure I type up my notes and give them to Tom. So worst case scenario, if we do have terrible internet, I could just stop talking and stop doing anything and let Tom basically run and give the news. And that way we can deliver to you without my crappy connection ruining it. So
Yep.
There you go.
So that's the plan for next week. So yeah, Blight War, it's exciting. I'm looking forward to the box. It's I love they're at least thinking about Nurgle. It seems like this may be tied to the Time of War campaign, which is what we'll transition to next. There's a new box set, a new campaign rule set that's being released for like map campaign stuff with 3 associated army boxes. We covered those in prior weeks, didn't we?
Yes, we've talked about the 3 army boxes.
Yes.
We took a look at them last week. They look really good. I've got to admit, I love that Dark Elf one, but that's because that Fleet Master or whatever is featured heavily on the cover. Still 40 points. Still the best deal in a hero in AOS. I'm all about that guy. He's amazing.
That dude is so affordable.
He is. It's ridiculous.
He is the best point holder in the game.
Absolutely. Like when you need a hero to hold a point, call the best in the business, the most expendable, the 40-point Fleet Master.
Able to be allied with basically any other Dark Elf faction and Stormcast.
That's right.
So anyways, so Blight War. Blight War is coming. A campaign may be associated. It's not clear the relationship between Blight War and it. So, we'll see. It'll be fun. GHB 2017.
Yep, we've gotten a lot of spoilers. Let me quickly preface this with, we're not going to go into detail on like every spoiler that is leaked this week, because my God, we'd be here until the book comes out.
Yes.
So what we're going to do, like, we're going to talk about a little bit of stuff, but what we're going to do is we're going to do a show this Saturday. Okay. I'm going to round up all the usual suspects, get them all in a room, and we'll go online and we're going to break it down and do a long, detailed review of everything. So we'll have Saturday to crack into it, really get it.
Saturday evening, I'll pull it up and we'll walk through everything. And we'll talk about all the changes. And I'll have all the prior point values for changes and stuff like that on screen so that we can talk about it as we walk through the document.
Exactly.
I'm having some people over on Saturday, get the book, and then start playing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I would rather be doing that.
Drive on up, Tom.
No, I mean, I don't know. Don't worry. I like to talk and I like to complain. So, I mean, this is really high up in my list of stuff I like to do. But I also like to roll dice and play Warhammer. Yeah, so GHB 2017. We've gotten leaks of a bunch of the information. We had a couple surprise. Where'd I want to start? There's just so much. The new battalions. They looked not battalions. The new battle plans.
Ability. Oh, okay. Battle
plans looked all kind of tweaked. I'm super excited about that. So it's some of the old stuff mixed with some new. I've been watching some of the Warhammer TV, and this is part of the announcement I want to talk about. Is like they've been doing shows all week. They had Order Day on Monday, Destruction. No, Chaos Day Tuesday yesterday, Destruction today, and Death is tomorrow. And so they've been like hammering GHB stuff every day. Interviews in the morning, followed by 2 games, and it's been a wealth of information. The scenarios are similar to what you've done, but often tweaked and changed. And yeah, so there's just lots of great content. It looks like they've touched everything. This is going to be my pick of the week, just a heads up. But Jervis Johnson did one of the best videos I've ever watched on Warhammer.
Cool. It was
this
cool.
morning. It was a design video, like through and through. Mm-hmm. He was talking about the design, and he was talking about game design. And particularly bottom-up design, and how everything gets made. Like he was showing how the hamburger gets made on units and changes and all of the stuff.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, it was just such a great video. Yeah, and so he talked about scenarios and the changes that were made and stuff like that. He talked about units. He talked about allegiances. It's worth a watch. If you don't have a subscription to Warhammer TV, I would get one because it's worth your time.
Yeah, he really a lot of transparency in what he said, Tom. A lot.
Yeah,
I mean, it really it explained a lot of why they did what they did. He explained it. You know, it was great to hear.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and, I mean, it is worth noting that Jervis is one of the most senior and experienced and greatest game designers still working in the business today. So, there's that. I mean, I would hope that he can cogently explain his ideas at this point. He is about as expert as you can get at this sort of thing.
Yeah, and he did, again, it was a delightful, like, it was one of my favorite, I think it's my favorite content video that they've done.
I'm going to have to go back and watch it. Sadly, I did not get a chance to today.
Yeah.
But I'll have to go back and check it out.
So good. Anyway, so this was fantastic. They've went over a bunch of the allegiance abilities and all that other stuff. It looks like most of the allegiances that are in the GHB2, this is one of the interesting things that they connected the dots today, is that most narrow specific allegiances get a version or a form of the basic allegiance. All of them do, or most of them do in some format. So all of Death gets some format of the Death battalion, the Death allegiance in some manner, some way. The same thing with Order. And they talked about that with like the re-rolling Battle Shock stuff, and everybody seems to get some form of that. Iron Jaws get some form of the. So in general, it seems like it's only better to go narrower with your allegiance. Like you are truly getting something by going narrower. Yeah,
they're rewarding you for doing it.
Yes. Yeah, so that was interesting. It's sad to me for other factions that don't have that stuff. I think about like Phoenix Temple or Daughters of Cain or whatnot. It made me sad when somebody was like, well, what about Swift Hawk agents? And Jervis is like, they don't have enough units to have a whole faction. And I'm like, he does know there's like 10 units in that sub faction. But anyways.
I saw that, Tom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Daughters of Cain is the one that made me the most sad, because that is really the one that I like. I have a special place in my heart for those murderous psychopathic chicks. And
really good under the new points. Like,
sure.
Really good.
It'd be great. But I mean, whatever. It's not like those things are closed off. It just means you
just don't get as much.
Yeah.
Like you get less by doing those. Is basically what it is. Yeah, it's sad, but it is what it is. So yeah, it's coming. We also found out what the War Scroll changes were.
Yeah, let me say one more thing before we get to the War Scroll update. Not that I'm trying to cut short your I'll let you go, I promise.
No.
No, I like one of the ways they've been revealing this stuff, which is having the studio people actually show you their army and then kind of walk through what they like about it.
Yep.
For example, I would highly recommend checking out yesterday, 2 days ago, whatever it was, the one whenever they did the Bray Herd. Okay, it was very recently. And the dude takes you through his Beastman army. And I was like, heck yeah, man. Heck yeah. Like, I read that Beastman stuff. I'm not going to lie. I got excited. I got real excited. I was seriously like, this is the thing, Steve. I told you before we went online, I was talking to Steve about Holy Havoc, and I said, I'm really up in the air about what to play.
He is. He has not made his decision yet. He has not painted a single model yet for this event at 2 months.
Can I bring Sisters of Battle? How do you feel about tanks? All right, look. So, all right. Here's what I'll say. I read that Bray Herd thing, and I was like, all right, I got to convince Tom to stick with Nurgle. Like, that was my first thought. I was like, because I need to be rocking some chaos here. I gotta need Tom to get them Beastmen back on the table. I heard the call.
And that's so funny, Vince, because I was going to try to convince you to go a different direction.
I'm just saying, man, I read those abilities, and I was like, I could feel Reefy Beastman. My inner Reef swelled up, and I was like, yes, I wanted to, run into the woods, dance and shout around a herdstone. Like,
you just want to drop a bunch of herdstones. Like, that's
I do. I really do. And I want to ambush and go nuts. Are you kidding me? Yes, just savage lunatics coming in from the woods.
Like, I've already played Nurgle though. Like, I played so much Nurgle to this.
All right, I'll tell you what. Just make a different Chaos Force. That's fine. I'm okay with it. Whatever you want to do, man.
That's not happening.
Just hey, Vince, whatever you do, just make sure it's all on rounds this year. Okay.
Oh, boom!
You can blame Tom for that because Tom wrote my list last year. He was like, "This is what you've got to take because I want to win."
These are the models that you have. Play them.
I don't rebase things, Tom. We know this. All right, let's move on.
Okay. Anyways, yeah. How would they be on rounds, Vince? That'd be great.
Well, if it was my Beastmen, they would be because all my Beastmen are on round bases. So there you
go. The War Scroll change was not a format change like we anticipated.
No.
It was truly the changing of a War Scroll. At a very fundamental level. Thunderers. Well, we'll get back to this later. Thunderers have changed. Thunderers have changed.
I think the whole world knows how you feel, Tom.
Basically, I thought taking out the full page ad in the New York Times was over the top, Tom. You really, really went all the way.
This unit was released less than 4 months ago.
And they made a mistake, and so they fixed it.
Yeah. So that seems to be an accurate description of the series of events, Steve.
Yes.
I can't imagine who would find that description controversial.
Look in the background of Tom's hobby room and see all the impulsive buys he has there.
I'll talk about this later.
Patience, my friend. Patience.
Well, I don't know what you have planned, but yes, they changed the Thunderers, obviously, like cogently to deliver just the facts, as it were. The rules now match sort of the box contents, right? So you can equip them with sort of one of each gun. Basically, 4 out of the 5 can have one of the special weapons. They got a couple new smaller special rules, and they had the range on the mortar changed. Those, I believe,
a third of what it was previously.
Yes, moved down 12 inches. So yes. I think that's so I believe that's so basically right now you've got like their standard gun, which is an 18-inch range. All the special ones are shorter. So there's a 9 and 3 12s.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the mortar before the change?
36 inches.
36, yeah.
What do you think? Why do you think the change there? It's a big...
because of stacking. Reasons is the answer. Because of reasons. Because they were afraid that people were going to show up at events with 20 Thunderers and 5 Chemists
Yeah.
and shoot off a bajillion shots at 36-inch range with no rend and obliterate every army off the table.
That's your theory, right? I mean,
You
haven't been told that though, right?
What I've been told a couple things. What I will publicly comment on is that the concern is that the contents of the box match the rules. Right. That has been the public statement. But on all of, like, the formal responses, but on some of the video interviews, they've acknowledged that it was, like, from the testing feedback. Jervis is the one that said it today. He said, based on the testing and the feedback, the community play testers, it was too strong.
Yeah.
And so they nerfed it based on that. And so now it's not real functional. So yeah. Yep. And I'll just simply say, the company, in the same faction, does the same thing. You get 10 Arcanaut privateer people. You can equip them with special weapons, any 3 you want, any combination. You only get 1 light skyhook or 1 of each weapon in the box, and then they didn't fix them. So they fixed the Thunderers in the same release, but they didn't fix the company. Storm Fiends are the same way. You only get 1 set per box. They didn't change the Storm Fiends War Scroll. So literally, it was only this unit.
Because you bought them.
It's because I bought 10 boxes of them.
I'm sure that's what it was. Yes, they were looking at sales data, saw what was sold, and they were like, "We got to get this guy in particular." I mean, I suspect that it's a combination of a couple things. With the Arcanaut company, it's not as offensive because it's not the entire box. It is only 3, as you mentioned. So you're talking about 2 guns away. It's less of a sort of being out of line of what's in the box versus what you can build. And they weren't overtly powerful with the Storm Fiends. They've been out for a long time. This has been their rules.
I think that people would debate whether they were overtly powerful with Storm Fiends deep striking with Hellfire or with Warp Fire cannons, 3 inches out. Arguably, those are pretty powerful.
I'm not saying Storm Fiends are bad. I'm saying I don't know that they're not ruling the world, but I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know. Here's where we are.
They won, was it South Coast GT where they were getting thrown by Sail 18 inches up the table and obliterating units. They were one of the units that they were thrown for, like Bloodletters and other stuff.
I mean, have they participated and been part of a top winning army? Yes. As have hundreds of other units. I mean,
anyways, man. At the end of the day, this doesn't fix anything for KO, because you can stack 800 chemists. Well, actually, you can't, because they nerfed the chemist points down up to 140. But you can stack a bunch of chemists with huge blocks of Arcanaut company, fully loaded skyhooks, and get over 100 shots at like 4+, 3+, -2 rend, D3 damage. So you can still get like just far more ridiculous shots out of them now, are still. And they didn't change it, and they're very aware of it. So I don't know. We'll see. It'll take somebody winning a GT with 800 shots and tabling somebody in turn 2 in order for them to change it. But whatever. So it is what it is. So exploit it while it's there.
I will say I do agree with Steve in the point that was made in the comments that Storm Fiends are a super annoying kit to put together. Also get rid of the brain rats. I don't know if you put your brain rats on the back of yours, Steve, but if you did,
I did, and they wear little berets with a feather on them.
So. They do.
Rats and hats.
Sure they do. Yeah, you got little brain rat hats. I support getting rid of the brain rats. You don't need the brain rats. My Storm Fiends are brain ratless. # lose the brain rats. So there you go.
Unless they wear a hat.
Well, yours are probably more adorable, but those little weird, freaky, malformed rat things are disturbing at a deep level in my soul normally.
Yeah, and to answer another question in the comments, this is a problem of stacking. This has always been a problem of stacking. All of the major nerfs they've done have been issues of stacking. This goes back to my Tomb Kings rant back in February, okay? Because at the end of the day, the problem here is not these individual units. The problem here is a combination of units stacking abilities in order to get something that's way more powerful than any of them individually. Here, it's just a unit of guns of the same type, followed by a bunch of chemists. You know, with Tomb Kings, it was like Cetra, and it was the Royal War Sphinx, and it was snakes, stacking wound buffs and throwing them forward. And so, like, the issue is stacking. It's always been stacking. I have provided feedback on this directly to folks, you know, to Ben Johnson and to stuff like that. We've had conversations, and they've decided not to deal with stacking. And so, as I predicted back in February, the merry-go-round will continue going. And every time something that's stacking that's really good is found and somebody exploits it, they're going to nerf the thing and not the issue, not deal with the hard issue. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say.
Good to know. All right. It was relatively contained for you.
Yeah, it is. Like I've been fighting. Well, I haven't gotten to hobby time this week yet.
Oh, okay. Oh,
yeah, like it may bubble up when I get to hobby time because
I can't wait.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. Compendium Units. They said that not only Compendium Units, they actually said that all points are going to be available apparently this weekend. When asked specifically, so I had mentioned Forge World in the comments. They said everything's going to be available. Everything's going to get updated and available this weekend. So apparently we will have new Forge World, and they implied that there's a lot of new Forge World scrolls. That what we saw with the Rogue Idol was not just the first, and that there are adjustments with most of the War Scrolls, or many of the War Scrolls. And so there was even allusion to like a Squig army forthcoming, and so like we may see the spit of the Gobla, like the artillery Squig piece, be playable.
You shut your mouth! Don't you build up hopes in all those all these people?
Like the true Squig army with like Squig artillery and monsters and battle line Squigs, all of it could happen.
Wow!
A general on a Squig rider, and they even talked about a revised Squig like rider war scroll. So like actually making them good. They talked about that in the chat today.
I wonder if Sale's going to take a hit in some way with his scroll.
Yes.
Yeah, he will.
Prediction. Yes.
Yeah.
That what?
Will he get more expensive? Will Sale get more expensive? Yes.
Well, he'll get more expensive.
Well, no, maybe not. Maybe not. I don't know that Sale will get more expensive. I think they're going to. I don't think so. I think they're going to cut the legs out from underneath the fly.
You think they'll nerf the War Scroll?
Yeah, I think they'll nerf it. Yeah,
okay.
Like I don't think they're gonna. I don't think they'll jack up the cost. I think what they'll do is they'll change it into something like the Vermin Lord teleporter, like the new Skaven spell or something. Like they'll do something like that rather than the flat 18-inch fly.
Gotcha.
Like a double move, or they'll do something along those. Like that's what I like. If I were to guess, that's the direction it'll go. Not that it matters from the reels this week. Like Slon can now unbind with no range, like on the table all time.
Anywhere on the table.
With that combined with like the Khorne Brazen Rune being able to auto dispel a spell, combined with like the Tzeentch, like magic, relying on magic spells is going to be a bad idea in the new meta. Because like if you have a clutch spell, they can like there's just enough tools across multiple armies that it's going to be a problem for folks.
I'm glad to hear that the age of the Lizardmen has returned.
It certainly has. Yeah, that was
Russ Veal played it on Monday and just trounced his opponent.
Yeah, that teleporting, being able to do it twice.
Yeah.
In your hero. Oh my gosh! Just
you can pick up a model and basically deep strike it 9 inches out anywhere else on the table. Like it's just
twice per hero phase, right? You can do it twice in your hero phase.
Something like that.
Yeah. And picking up 40, I picked up a whole unit and just teleport them. 40, what was
Dropped a Carnosaur in the back line.
Yeah. Awesome stuff.
Yep. It's good. So anyways, Compendium points are coming. That'll be exciting. The Paint app. There's a Paint app coming. Citadel Paint app. It's coming. We don't know what it is. We don't know what it's going to do. Some people think that it'll be like a painting guide. Like you'll maybe be able to like take a photo and like be able to analyze the colors of like, hey, if you want to paint like how best to paint that thing. You know, like I know other websites and stuff like that have that, upload a photo and you can identify like all the paint stuff that you need for that to paint that thing. Some people think that it's just going to be like a painting log where you like log all of like what colors that you used for certain stuff. Who knows? We don't know what it is.
Yeah, I mean, if it's if it's good, it will do the Reaper thing you're talking about, which is, you know, Reaper classically has a thing on their site where you can feed an image in and then you just move the mouse around and click on a point. And like in that section of pixels, it'll show you the match and the near match colors of like what the low tones, mid tones, and high tones are. So like it'd be cool if it did that. I don't know if it will or not, because it'd be kind of hard like to do that to control that on a mobile device of exactly where, but I don't suppose it's impossible. At the very minimum, yes, it should be like a paint recipe recorder. So you can like take a photo of your Minnie and then like select the paints you used to do it. Right. Because there are paint rack apps that do that right now.
Yep.
Of course, it should also have just a mega listing. I mean, this is like free advertising. It should, of course, have a mega listing of all the GW paints and as close to digitally renderingly possible of the color that they produce, right?
Well, and not only that, like if you could like say like, because I know they have the color charts. They have the sweet color charts where it's like, this is the base color. This is what it is with washed with this. This is what it is highlighted with this. Like they have those in store, and it wouldn't surprise me if you could like choose any combination of color and wash or whatever, and basically render that out. Like, what does this look like with this highlighted with this or whatever? Like
Sure.
that wouldn't surprise me.
It'd also be neat if you could like, if you had a little paint thing that you could like, the thing that I don't think it will do that would be the super coolest would be if you could like have a little black and white version of the model that you like click the space on and then click the color and it turned it that color, right? Like that would be super hip. I doubt that's going to happen, but man, that would be the coolest.
Violatron mentioned that he was told by GW that it will, just as I said, like be able to do the like color matching. It'll let you log your colors, and we'll give Duncan's recipes. So we'll see.
That'd be cool. Again, it's in their best incentive to make it as easy as possible for people to overcome that barrier of entry.
Yep.
Like
yep. And convince people to use their paints.
Well, I mean, sure, that's definitely their market incentive, but like on a micro level of just playing this game, like the paint is one of the most intimidating things to a new player. Like bottom line,
I can't paint.
Yeah, I mean, remember when you were a new player, unless you were shepherded in by somebody or had painted other miniatures before, it is super intimidating. Like I've brought plenty of people in who were, you know, very, very concerned about their ability to paint, and convincing them that they can do it, itself is hard.
Yep.
So,
okay, we got to move on. Shadespire, we saw a poster at Gen Con, officially released. It was like late October, wasn't it? Or was it early November? I think it said coming in November on the poster.
Yeah, but then they said October in the actual community update. So
it'll probably be pre-order last week of October.
I would guess that to be the case. Yeah, it'll probably breach that gap. So both are true.
Right. City boxes that are coming. We talked about this at Time of War. New campaign system. That's super exciting for like doing map campaigns and stuff like that. I'm excited. I would love if Nurgle gets released as part of this whole big campaign. We'll see if that happens. But we do know that Death Guard is coming mid-September. So that's the news.
There you go. All right. That was short. So with, just burnt right through that.
Yeah, that was fast. We're not going to spend much time.
Like it's almost 10. So...
As per usual in big news weeks. All right. So let's turn to some picks of the week. So, Steve, what do you got, man? What do you want to share?
Yeah, I want to share AOS Shorts. Great podcast and great website, too. It's AOSshorts.com. You should go check it out. It's got some really great resources on there. Dan and his team from New Zealand have done a great job. You can follow Dan at what is it? Antipodine. Oh, gosh, I can't say that word. Antipodine7 on Twitter. He's working with some buddies of his, James, Sean, and Tim. They're all specialized in match play. So if you're looking for tactics and best insights on the game, I would definitely check it out. I've been really impressed with what he's been doing and the content he's been putting out. It's been awesome. The episodes are short and sweet, to the point. He stays focused on task, so it really gives you some good insight. Much to my chagrin, he talked. This one of the episodes this week was how to deal with Sylvaneth Wildwoods. Great insight on that. Thanks a lot. But no, it's good. It's all good stuff. Everything's good stuff about prioritizing, about list design. Great stuff. If you want to get better at tournament play, I think it's definitely a great resource. He's got on their resources page, he has some really useful tools. He's got an example of an Age of Sigmar army list checklist that you should have. It's got status tokens up there, links to different status tokens that you can get. He's got an AOS combat calculator, which is really fun to use. So you should check it out, aosshorts.com.
Nice. Which has been mentioned before in the past on this. We're all big fans of AOS Shorts. I'll drop that link down below. You should be going. You should be checking it out. Do it. Not this second. You know, if you're watching this in the future, go ahead. All right. Tom, what about you, buddy? What's your pick?
I'm just going to go with the Warhammer TV this week. They've been pumping out great content. I had mentioned it earlier. Today was just a great day of videos. One was Jervis's interview, like totally worth subscribing for a month, paying $5 if you don't have Amazon Prime, and watching just the video. Like, it was that good. And then this evening, Pete Foley and Ben Johnson rematch with the new Iron Jaws and new Sylvaneth.
Flesh Eaters.
I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. The new Flesh Eaters and the new Iron Jaws. Yeah. And Pete bringing a double Maw Crusher list. And boy, oh boy, was it stompy. That game literally came down to the last die roll.
Let me just point out, full credit to Doom and Darkness for calling. As soon as he saw the new Allegiance ability for Iron Jaws, he was like, double Maw Crusher is a go. Like, he made a video like that day. There it is. Got the cabbage. Steve repping the cabbage. He was pointing out the double Maw Crusher list. So I feel like Doom and Darkness gets full credit there. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, like it's bonkers. Like, just bonkers.
Yeah, it's definitely on my shopping list.
And the one command ability that Pete had was that, like, during every enemy's charge phase, you roll a dice. On a 5-up, you can make charges with any of your units.
Right. Yep.
Like, wow. Talk about taking control of the flow of combat. Like, it didn't help that he rolled like 3 turns in a row and just kept just stomping across the board. Like, and I don't want to spoil the game who won, but like, it literally came down to the very end of the game. Like, the last die rolls. Like, it was that significant.
Nice.
And it was a cutthroat game where you're like, oh no, Pete's gonna win. Like, this is it. And then, like, Ben turns around, so like resummons 4 like Vargulfs or whatever. Like, they regen back, start stomping around. Then it's like, oh no, Ben has it, and then Pete comes rolling back in. Like, it was a great match. A lot of very strategic play. People, like, folks that are looking for like sharp, good, clean, tight play, I would encourage watching the video.
That was great.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. For my own pick, it's going to lead into what we're discussing today when we get to our feature segment, which is going to be talking about the hobby. We're going to focus on some hobby stuff tonight. Tabletop Minions. I got a chance to catch up with Uncle Adam at Gen Con, which was nice. And he had a video out actually while we were at Gen Con, where he talks about why goals are important and how to set goals, how to stick to goals, especially in relation to getting through an army. So I thought it related very well to what we're going to discuss tonight, which is a lot of hobby focused on if perhaps you get inspired with GHB2 to start a new army, as I imagine many people will be. And if you do, things like setting goals and how do you get through it and how do you approach it from a hobby perspective is very important, because I'm sure we all have some projects that are stop-starts somewhere in our hobby history. That is just the nature of the game. So how do you actually see the project through to completion? That kind of thing. He talks a lot about goals. We're going to talk more about it tonight. Check out his video, link down below. So,
okay, wait. I'm stopping the show right now.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Vince?
Yeah.
You almost got me by filling out the news You almost got me.
What did I almost get?
We missed a couple news items.
What's that?
We missed a couple news
Oh,
items.
what did we not cover? What did I forget? I'm honestly not knowing what you're talking about right now.
Vince was at Gen Con this weekend.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, this is what we're talking about. Okay, got it.
And for those who don't know, Vince entered a painting competition.
I did.
You
There's
did?
a painting competition run by MHE.
Yep.
Yep.
Competition at all, Vince?
Sure. So it's a great competition. It passed to a new owner this year, and she did an excellent job running it. It was very well attended this year. There was a lot of great entries, and there were 5. It was open style format. So you got silver, gold, bronze. Obviously, that's non-competitive. Any number of people could get any of those things. But you have to meet a certain level of quality to get gold or silver or bronze based on a 4-panel judge. The judges all judge individually. Your scores are then combined, and then based on that, you fall where you fall. And just as an aside, at the end of the competition, you got all of your scoring sheets from all the judges. Like, you don't know which judge judged you. You know what I mean? Like, it's anonymous as to who gave you what, and their notes for feedback, which was awesome. This needs to be a thing at more painting competitions. ReaperCon does this too, by the by. And this is like one of my favorite things. And you could say the judges made themselves available to share with you. It was really, really wonderful. And so hats off completely to a very, very well-run painting competition. So this is what Tom is showing. Yes.
Vince, do you want to talk about what this image is?
Sure. So I took as I mentioned, gold, silver, and bronze I had 7 entries. Let's start there. And so all of my entries got gold, which I was happy about. And then there are 5 categories, and then there's a special category called Rainbow Brush, which has to do with pieces around a particular theme. This year's theme was environmental conservationism. And so out of the 5 potential first places in the standard categories, I took 2 of them. Obviously, there is only 1 first place, so that is quite, I was quite proud and happy to achieve that. Best ordnance, that was from my girl. That's my Knight Titan, my sisters of Battle Knight Titan, Veritas. The Sword of Celestine, and best unit was for my weird crew for the Daughters of Twilight there. And then the silver was also for the weird crew in Rainbow Brush, because they were both. The not pictured here, I also entered a chibi, the chibi painting competition run by Elizabeth Beckley Bradford, which was also awesome, hosted by Ninja Division. And I took a bronze in the diorama category. That's not an open system thing. There's 1 silver, 1 gold, 1 silver, 1 bronze. So I took 3rd place in the diorama category of the chibi competition as well. So I was actually very happy about that, because chibis aren't my normal thing, I guess is what I'd say. Yeah, 2nd place in Rainbow Brush plus 2 firsts. I couldn't be more thrilled. There you go.
Congrats, buddy.
Congrats, Vince. I knew that you wouldn't. It dawned on me that I was like, oh, we need to report on that, and of course you're not going to include that in the news notes. Anyways,
no.
So
and by the way, I want to give a shout out to Chris Schur, who won Best Painted and took Best Overall, won Best in Show with his piece. He had an absolutely beautiful, beautiful, stunning piece that I just loved when I saw it. And what he did, the background thing, steal him a background thing. No, it was great, Chris. It was like so beyond magnificent, and he absolutely deserved that win. I would have picked his over anything I submitted, so there you go. And the truly amazing thing about it, if you saw it, I don't know, the pictures will probably go up on the MHE Facebook, but when you see Chris's piece, it's this sort of bird woman with a sort of Roman style shield and the sort of yellowish background. When you see it, what you need to understand is that entire thing was done with 6 artists' colors. That's it. That is red, yellow, blue, white, black flesh tone. That's it. And I guarantee you it is not only in those colors. Everything was mixed from artist's colors. So Chris is an amazing artist, and it was a well-deserved win. It was a truly good contest and a great weekend all around. Gen Con was amazingly good this year. I also sent Tom a picture that, just as a quick aside, that made me laugh. They had a wonderful display of the original Gen Con in the Lucas Oil Stadium. Like, they had an area marked off that was the size of the original horticultural center where the first one was 50 years ago, which is incredibly tiny. In there, they had cases that displayed the history of Gen Con. And in the back corner, there was an area dedicated to Magic. And there was a cabinet that had an Alpha, Beta, and Unlimited of the Power 9 across. So one Alpha,
there
one
was
Beta,
like,
one Unlimited.
There was a, like, you could buy a house.
That's $50,000, like easy. They were all, like, pristine, too, by the by.
Vince, was that case locked?
Nope. Nope. I tried. I opened the case and I was like, "This opens. This shouldn't open." I closed it immediately. I'm not running off with stuff. But you may want to lock that cabinet that's got a house sitting inside it worth of, Magic cards. Anyway, so there you go.
Yeah. Congrats also to Domus, who won the Gen Con AOS tournament, and
I saw that.
MC1 Gamer won a pretty significant tournament out east this week as well. I think they had like a $600 first place cash credit prize. So, yeah, like real money. Yeah. So congrats to both of you guys for your first place wins. So that's pretty big.
Absolutely. He's got that. Did you see Domus has the pair now?
I did.
He's got that. That's pretty awesome.
Double hammers.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let's go back to hobby time.
That's fine. Thank you, Tom. Yes, I'm not going to mention that stuff. I'm not a toot my own horn guy. So, but it was very fun. I look forward to next year. By the way, I'll answer this as well, because this question was asked many times. I will be teaching classes at Gen Con next year. So I already talked to her. I have that all set up. So there you go. Hobby Cheating will be coming live to Gen Con next year, as well as probably some other conventions. So there you go. All right. So let's talk about hobby time. Steve, what's on your table, buddy? What have you been working on?
Oh, lots. At the moment, many years ago, I told my youngest that I would paint his slaves to darkness. And so I have finally started to paint his slaves to darkness for him. So it is an exercise in speed painting, which I'm not really good at because I can't say I'm done. So it's not really speed painted. So that's kind of what I'm working on at the moment. I'm just about done with it. I've only got his Marauders, which really are kind of useless. But then again, now they're going to get this big bonus in the new with GHB2, so maybe he'll want to use them.
40 models for 200 points.
Yeah. So I got those to do. I've got some of his Dragon Ogres. And then
nice.
Yeah, his Riders of Riders of Slaanesh. Is that what they are in slaves? Hellstriders?
Yeah.
Hellstriders.
New optional battle line for Slaanesh.
Yes, his two chariots are just about done. Before the show, I just applied their basing material to them.
That was a mistake.
So they're just about done. What was the mistake? Painting them or him having them?
Yes. I think his answer is going to be yes.
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 Any time on chariots.
Well, they lit my ass up in last week's game, so they did some good stuff. It's all about the dice, babe. And then I keep looking back. That's terrible work, terrible video. I think that's it. So I'm almost done with that stuff, and then I'll be back onto the Sylvaneth and the Dr. Doom Stormcast. I'm looking forward to getting back to my stuff, to be honest with you.
That makes sense. I get it. I can't wait to see your Dr. Doom Stormcast and your Sylvaneth hit the paint table, my friend. I'm excited about both of those projects. Your conversions on both look fantastic. So it'd be great to come to life.
Thanks. The proof of concept for Dr. Doom really is motivating me. So I'm gonna make some minor tweaks. I did post something out there on the community page of what he looks like. I'm gonna bring him up a little bit higher on the greens, on his cloak. On the gaming table, he's not popping enough for me, so I wanna bring it up a little bit higher. And then the dryads, the proof of concept dryads that I'm working on, I've been struggling with the kind of ethereal weapons. I've never really done anything like that before, and I want to avoid using, when we get into our main segment, I'll explain later, but I want to avoid using the GW kind of, the noxious oxide type ghostly looking stuff.
Sure.
So anyway, so that's it. What do you guys got going on?
All right. What's on your table, buddy? He asked with reservation.
Sure. I've been working on a couple projects.
I'm excited. What have you been working on?
So my week this week started with these guys.
Yeah, it did.
I finished my second full unit of Paraudron Overlords.
Yep.
Now,
you did.
That's actually a lie.
Okay.
Because 24 hours later, the Thunder Leak hit the market.
Yep.
It's been a week of hobby time pouring into these guys.
And they look very nice.
Thank you. Only to find out the next day, literally the next day, they're no longer a legal unit. Because you have to equip them all differently.
Okay.
I was really disappointed.
Yep.
So this nerd... Guys in the comments, stop encouraging me. This really hit close to home, this nerf, because I had spent all of this time. I had posted on Twitter and got like all the likes. I got all the likes and all the retweets, just all of them. All of them the internet had to offer. And then it was such a kick in the junk. I got so to put things in perspective, I have a 3-page rant typed up. I do. I was going to do a huge segment responding to this. And I'm just not. I changed my mind, folks. I part of it is I've cooled off. I've said my piece to folks that need to hear it, and I've interacted directly with people that need to receive feedback that's appropriate. So I've pursued the proper channels, and I've been heard. Let me say that. That said, I'm just real disappointed.
No,
I think I'm
it's
disappointed.
Understandable.
I'm disappointed because I've come to expect better out of GW. The park so hard over these last 6 months. This last 9 months. They've done so well. And to retract a war scroll 4 months afterwards is just a kick in the nuts. Because here's the deal, is that people bought boxes that made purchasing decisions based on what the war scrolls were 4 months ago. Now, they can't build those things that they specifically purchased in the way that they had purchased them. I have 10 boxes. I would be returning 8 of them, probably, if I hadn't opened them. Had I known before this nerf, I would have returned a bunch of those. At this point, they're open. I've decided not to pursue going through customer service, even though I've had that offer. Because at this point, the reality is that when I bought into this army, I didn't know the stats. I don't know if you guys remember that or not. We didn't know the numbers on a lot of this stuff.
I remember.
And you were literally buying units blind.
I remember.
And I bought in deep because I wanted a Paraudron Overlord's army. And I was sold on the conversions and what I was going to build. And so at the end of the day, I wanted to have the whole suite of units and all that stuff. And I'm still going to have that. It's just I'm going to end up painting a bunch of stuff and it's never going to hit the table. And I'm okay with that now, I think. I'm just disappointed. I wish that GW had went about this a different way. As I've said before, I wish that they had let us know that these changes were in the works, like with the Fire Slayer points. That would have been a great kind of communication to the community. You know, I've recommended that they do just a small sign of good faith to the community and offer, like, print a bunch of the Thunderer cards and make them available in the GW stores and through customer service. For those that have bought the War Scroll card packs and now have a card that they cannot use because there are entire paragraphs of abilities missing from it. Ranges are different. Numbers, you know, like, it's completely different. That card is not usable now because it's missing too much information. It would be a very simple fit, you know, a simple kind of gesture to the community. I don't know if they're going to do something like that. Yeah. That's where I think I'm going to end it. I could go on. Like, yeah. Anyway, so this is what I started my week out with. I finished this beautiful unit, and I was, like, super excited. I put it out. It was really well received. And then I can't play it anymore. I would have to literally have to paint up 10 more boxes of models in order to actually use any of these models. And then even if I did, they would all be terrible because it's a terrible unit now. And so superseded by simply 10 Arcanaut Company mathematically. It's embarrassing. Okay. So the next thing I did was I worked with Alexander Nygaard, and he's been working on his End Times. He's been working on his End Times Battle Tome. So I did a bunch of Nurgle photography. This is just one of the shots that I did for his book. I don't know if this one's going to make it in or not, but felt like this was capturing the whole kind of my masses of Nurgle. Some of the I think the Siege of Altdorf style thing. So dropped some of that in there, and yeah. So I did some photography this week. I don't normally do that, and then. I moved right on because I'm obviously a glutton for punishment into doing more Karajan Overlords. That said, I may scrap all of it after I get these guys done, put it all on the shelf, and move on to a different army. So that's a possibility too. So we'll see. I was going to take all this to Holy Havoc, but all that's up in the air now.
There you go. I mean, you know, it might be the thing to walk away for a little while. Sometimes you got to cool off from a hobby project, right? And you know, get something else to light your fire, and then you come back to it. I've done that before many a time. Nothing wrong with that. All right. Well, Tom, that was rather restrained. And by the way, for anybody who has any response you can formulate to Tom in regards to what he just said, like if there's any rational response you have, like literally anything you can think of, I've already said it, so you don't need to worry about it. I've got you covered. I already went through all the steps. We worked through the stages of grief together. That's why we're friends. So there you go.
Vince is at Gen Con at the painting competition, and I'm furiously tweeting back and forth to him as all of this is breaking. Now that just said, it's not just me being unstable. There are people that are a lot more level-headed than me. Stop it. There are a lot of people that are a lot more level-headed than me that I had to talk down from a cliff this weekend. Mm-hmm. So it's not just me with the releases that dropped this week.
Change is always hard. Yes. Change is always tough. I look forward to this repeating in a cycle from now until the end of Age of Sigmar. How wonderful that will be. Once a year, I get to look forward. This is going to be a new holiday for me. I'm excited about it. I'll call like I need a name for it. So somebody who's got a clever name for this holiday where everybody freaks the F out and I have to like calm down Tom because of some other change that he loses his mind
Tom's
on.
Temper tantrum something. Tom's temper tantrum something. We'll figure out something.
Sure. If you've got a good name for this new holiday, it will coincide once a year with the release of GHB insert year here. Please leave comments.
Yeah, every time there's a new release and he says, I'm all in, everyone's going to remind him, Thunderers.
Oh, yes.
Sorry,
it's good
Tom.
to laugh at Tom's pain. All right. So, okay. So my hobby time, I haven't gotten near enough of it. Let me just say that. I have been desperately short on hobby time. Basically, after I shared the girl that I had put together last week, I left immediately the next morning. I got back late Sunday night. I have gotten very little hobby time since then. But she's progressing. I'm still working on St. Celestine. She probably looks horribly flat there. Sorry. But what I'll tell you is that I have a new recipe for non-metallic metal gold, and I doubt it really shows up very well there.
What paints you're using?
So if you're curious, I don't know if I can pick all these up, but I'll give it a shot. We'll give it a try.
I'll say manufacturer.
So, well,
it's a mix.
No, never. So this is Ochre 1, 3, and 5 from War Colors. It is Bosch Chestnut and Arbuckles Brown from Scale 75, and Vallejo Game Effects Rotten White, as well as some good old Lamenter's Yellow, one of my favorite colors of all time. So there you go. And I've been playing around with how those work, as well as doing some retardant retardant medium wet blending, and I've been very, very happy with the results. So there you go. She'll be done soon enough. But yeah, I'm very, very excited about her. Such a beautiful model. I'm glad I've got 5 more of her. Okay. So let's talk about hobby, huh? All right, here we go. Feature segment.
Woo.
Oh, it was a road. It was a road we've all walked down together, and I feel like we've all grown as people because of it. So here we go. What I wanted to talk about tonight was kind of focusing on the hobby agenda. And as I said, with GHB2 coming out, GHB 2017, whatever you want to call it, the next General's Handbook, and so much of the game being changed, my guess is some people are going to be inspired to start some new armies. As I mentioned, when I looked over, just when I saw that Bray Herds thing, I got super excited. Now, I already have a Beastmen army. I could do more. But I was super excited to see it. So, it made me want to get that force back out, to add a couple more models to it. And so I thought, with people starting some new armies, it's let's do a hobby show where we talk about some of the challenges, some of our own tips and tricks, and how we get projects done. For a point of reference, I have one, sitting around me right now are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 painted armies.
Yeah, you don't count. You don't count because the amount of hours that you get to paint per day.
I understand that. That is completely fair. My point is simply that it can be done. You can finish an army. You don't have to get 9, but you can do 1. Okay, yeah. If I can do 9, you can do 1. That's all I'm saying.
That's true. No, okay. I have 2 fully painted armies. Okay, so if I can paint an army with my commitments, with 4 kids and full-time job, doing a PhD, if I can get 2 armies painted and I'm well on my way to a 3rd, you can get 1 done.
Right. Yes, that is correct. I do not have children because children destroy hobby time. So,
also true.
Yes, absolutely. All right. But regardless of your spawn situation, you may or may not likely have the time to finish an army. So there you go. All right. So Steve, and we got Steve here because Steve puts a lot of love and care into his armies. He does amazing conversions. If you watch his progress
the master of hobby.
Yes, indeed. If you watch his progress with the Sylvaneth, with all the tables he built, Steve is all about taking projects through. If you've ever seen Steve's Rats and Hats army, it is a beauty, a glory to behold, and truly an understanding of how to see a project through to a beautiful completion.
Amen. Yeah.
Well, thank you, boys.
I was gonna say, I'll be honest, Steve. It was your Rats and Hats that was partially what inspired my my Fireslayer army.
Oh wow!
Because of just having the singular, true full conversion concept.
Nice.
Because cool. I've converted other units and other stuff like that, but I've never done a full army with concept from beginning to end. This uniform army spanning thing. And so it was actually your Rats and Hats that had me thinking about that.
Great. Well, that's really heartwarming to hear. I'm humbled by that. I recall being asked on Garage Hammer many moons ago when Chris Yu was co-host. They asked me, they had asked me what kind of painting award I would want to win, like best painted or fan favorite, and I told them without hesitation fan favorite. And to hear that Rats and Hats inspired you, Tom, that means a lot. Thanks.
Yeah. So let's talk about first off, what motivates you to start a new army? And I thought this would be an especially good question since, Steve, you've recently started sort of these two armies, right? We mentioned them at the top of the show in the Hobby Time. What motivated? So what I want to say is, what motivated you to start them? How did you collect them? How do you go about plotting them, planning them, piecing them, finishing them? Right? What's sort of your strategy you use?
Well, the first thing when you talk about motivations, Vince, I start with the sculpts. That's usually what motivates me the most. Okay, if I really dig the sculpts, then I can see the conversion possibilities. And I had always planned to do an additional Wood Elf army back right near the end of 8th edition, so I had bought all the models ready to go for 9th. And then when Age of Sigmar dropped, that kind of project got put on hold. And then when the Sylvaneth came out, the models that motivated me to actually jump onto the Sylvaneth were the Hunters. Those models they spoke to me, and I just absolutely loved the sculpts. And then from there, I looked at what types of conversion possibilities were there within the army. And that's how I did the Rats and Hats. That's how it started with the Rats and Hats as well. So so that's what I look for first. Am I passionate about the sculpts, and can I see the conversion possibilities?
All right, fair enough. And I think that's a really good point, because it is, I think, very important to keep it painting an entire army is a slog. Let's be honest, right? Let's not cushion this. You are going to hit points where you are like, I do not want to continue this, right?
Right.
And if you're painting stuff you hate, you will stop when you hit those points.
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly why, with the Slaves to Darkness, I just not a fan. I'm just not a fan. So it's tough for me to get through that army for my son. I could not imagine jumping into that army. I'm not that type of painter. I'm not the kind of guy who can play the best, maybe the most competitive army out there if I'm not passionate about the sculpts. So, and for me, because it's such a huge task and undertaking to paint it at the level that I expect of myself, that's what's really important is making sure that that I'm motivated by the models. If the models don't motivate me, I'm not going to do it. Then, and the other thing too, I think that you kind of have to be, for myself anyway, when I look at the models, like I said, it's the sculpts and the conversions when I'm getting ready to start a new project, and the overlords almost pulled me in. They kind of took their sky hooks, and
gotcha.
They got me, and they were calling to me, but it goes to the third level for me, and that's the fluff. I've never been really kind of a dwarf guy, and so even though this is all new and it's right up my alley in terms of what they did with them, in terms of the steampunk style, I love the concept of the sky coming out of the clouds and everything. I just not enough to pull me in. So that's that third level. So it's the sculpts, conversion possibilities, and then the fluff. Because really the fluff is how you build your conversions and how you build your theme to your army. So you can get that cohesive look, and it'll inspire you as well. So
so can I jump in real quick, Steve?
Yeah,
it's funny that you mentioned that, because for me, I agree. When I came at my KO, when I was thinking about them, I was frustrated because I was like, I kind of like this, but there's not enough hair. I wanted more natural, and it was just all mechanical, all metal. And I was frustrated with that, just that aspect of the sculpt, because I wanted beards, and I wanted to feel dwarfy, and I didn't feel dwarfy, and I just didn't know what my take was. And I remember looking through some old stuff, and I hit Long Drong's Slayers, the pirate Slayers.
Right.
And it hit me. That's it. I'd wanted to do a Fire Slayer army. This was the perfect opportunity to combine the two so that I can mix and match the two armies. It let me do my fire bases that I've been wanting to do. Like, it fit within the lore, because like having like a freeloading, like truly Dogs of War, and it merged like Old World and New World, like some new AOS with the Old World, so it was a callback. Like it hit all of those boxes, but it wasn't until it ticked all those boxes that I went in. Right. But before I wasn't going to do it because it just wasn't enough. I agree.
Right, and that's tough. It's kind of you set your. I think for me, when it doesn't click when I can't check off all those boxes.
Yep.
I'm not going to get through the project. You know, I'm looking right now at some stuff from War Machine and some old, Malifaux stuff, and those things are still sitting there. And maybe someday I'll get to that, but it's because it didn't hit all those points for me, and that's why they're still sitting there.
Yeah, I have an Iron Jaws Battle Force box. I have the Getting Started box, or not the Getting Started. I have the Skirmish box. Forget it, Iron Jaws. And just the reality is when I sat down to do them, I didn't nothing jumped out at me.
Yeah.
And so actually it was ironically the Skyborn Slayer or the Skybasha clan was the one that ironically jumped out at me. But then this dropped, and I was like, well, I'm doing this.
Mm-hmm.
But there was just nothing that ever grabbed my attention with Iron Jaws. Right. And so I couldn't pull the trigger. Like Vince, I don't know if you remember that or not. Like I sat around and do you remember brainstorming? And I was like, I need an angle on Iron Jaws, and just none of this felt right. And so literally I just put everything back on the shelf. Like I was getting ready to cut stuff off sprues and start painting, and nothing was able to deliver. So I had to put the project back.
Yeah.
Sure. So, which leads to a good question, which is this. And I suspect I know the answer, Steve, but how much of the project do you have planned out before you, up to the moment you're about to actually, open a box and cut a sprue, as he just described? Where are you at? Do you, say, well, let me paint a couple test models? Or in your mind, do you already see what the army's going to look like, and now it's just a matter of bringing it to life? Where do you normally sit as you're staring down the army? Where does the image of the end crystallize for you?
Before I even cut anything off of the sprue, I have a visual idea of what I'm going to do. The Sylvaneth army that I'm currently working on. Some of you may have seen pictures of it. It's still it's all built, it's all sculpted, it's all primed. I have 4 test dryads painted. But the concept of the dryads holding ethereal weapons, okay, I was inspired by the Branch Witch, and I thought, well, if a Branch Witch can carry a weapon, why not the whole army? And I had already experienced building 30 dryads back in 8th edition, and it's a terrible kit to build and clean and the whole thing. And so I said to myself, okay, this Sylvaneth army I want to do to the next level. I want to go try to go beyond what I did with Rats and Hats. And it is, because there's custom sculpting on every model, and so repositioning. And what I did, I printed out, I took screenshots of I printed out the images from the GW website on the dryads. And what I did was I sketched out what it would look like. I printed it out, and then I took a pencil and just kind of drew in the spear to say, okay, could I do this? Would it look hokey? How would it come off? So I got kind of a visual, an idea, and that was so successful that led me into the cloaks for my Dr. Doom Stormcasts. Okay, so I took out my pencils again and started to just draw out what it would look like with cloaks, flowing cloaks, and would it look absolutely ridiculous? So that helped me a lot, because previously in my previous projects, like Rats and Hats, I built everything, and then I started hacking everything up.
Right.
And so I had a lot of challenges there. I learned a lot about planning and what not to do when I did Rats and Hats versus, and during that whole project, all the way along that road, I learned as I went what I should have done. I should have planned on clan rats, replacing some of their spears with guns from the Empire army. The hats themselves, I had entire units painted, and then I had to go back and chop off the tops of their heads to fit hats on them, right? Because it wouldn't fit appropriately. So I had to repaint some of those units in order to pull that off. And then by the time I got to newer units like Storm Fiends, and when I did the Scurvy Keel, which is the bell boat, I had learned that, okay, you got to plan this out a little bit more. And you don't have to be, in order to do that, you don't have to be like gifted with drawing. You can just sketch it out real rough and just kind of get that visual idea, hey, can this work? So then with the Sylvaneth, that was more this new Sylvaneth army and the Stormcast. The idea was to always use them together in some manner. You know, I liked the story of the oh gosh, no, the brother. What? Oh, help me out, guys.
When the Hallowed Knights are in there.
Thank you. The Hallowed Knights. Yes, thank you. So that was the whole concept. That was the core of the inspiration. So that goes to that third level, which was the fluff, right? So that was like, oh, all right, yeah, I kind of dig that. But my Hallowed Knights are going to have green instead of blue. I'm going to have their chamber have the green to kind of go in, mix in with my Sylvaneth theme that I wanted to do. And the Doctor Doom. I mean, come on, yeah, it has to be green, right? For that look.
Absolutely.
But it comes down to that planning, you know, sketching it out first, and that was the first step. And then when it comes time to that first cut, okay, the first model, building that first model out. So what I did for the Sylvaneth and the Stormcast was, you know, I build that first model, I got it all built out, and I'm looking at it, and then I have to visualize in my mind how the green stuff's going to flow on the Stormcast. Like how's the cape going to flow? How's the cloak, you know, the cowl, how low is it going to be on his brow? And then it's taking those hobby clippers, right, and then chopping off the model's head, and then you're all in. Right. And
Yep.
So it's basically you have to do that first test model to see if it's going to work. So I do slow down. I don't just jump all in and start cutting everything away and then try to piece it together. So it's proof of concept, just like you do in anything else you do professionally. So it's, you know, finding that proof of concept first. The bigger challenge was the dryads, because cutting and repositioning fingers and then resculpting around that and making them look like they should be holding those glaives or those spears. It has to look natural. Yeah. And so those are the challenge. That's one of the challenges, and it's being very slow and deliberate as well when you're doing a conversion of that level with that level of detail in it.
Yeah, you know, so here's one thing I want to touch on, because I think it leads from your story right in. You had a clear conception. I think what's important is at the beginning, when you're getting your army together, no matter what level you want to take them to, I think it's appropriate to understand, one, the level you're trying to take them to, and B, what they look like, right? And yes, I just did 1 and B. Because, so if you're building an army solely because you want to build something that's cracking the meta, okay? Like you're a hardcore tournament person, you want to build something new, it's hot in the meta, you want to get it going, okay? There's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to have like some massively all converted army to hit like some form of hobby purity or something. That's nonsense. You can get an army for anything you want, or any reason you want that motivates you. But I think the concept that at the beginning you should know what they are, what they're going to look like, what you're trying to achieve, and set your goals accordingly. Yeah. That's the important part, right? Like with you were going in for this heavily converted force, right? Where, as you said, every model was repositioned, was green stuffed, had this like care to it. So you knew to set your expectations that this wasn't getting done anytime soon. Right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I got so much heat from people out there on Twitter. Ryan Nickel kept every time I would post a pic of a sculpt, he'd be like, enough with the green stuff, I want to see some painting. And it's just like I'm like, patience, dude. It has to get done. And that's the other thing, Vince, when you talk about the plan. Okay, so once the proof of concept was done, what you need to do is you need to, you know, when you're sculpting it, you can't take a break from sculpting. Okay, you'd have to, because you want it to be consistent across the entire army.
Right.
Okay, so this kind of this what I'm bringing up here might jump the gun a little bit, but it kind of gets into the whole batch painting process. And when you're building an army and getting consistency in your paint. Okay, so it's the same thing with your sculpting. So as you're sculpting along, you don't want to take a 3-week hiatus from sculpting and then jump back in. You want to keep your rhythm going, and you want to keep that, follow the steps, right? So you don't want to jump around.
So that's good. Let's transition then into some good tips and tricks for how you move through the force, right? And one you hit right there, which is think of your army in phases, right? And those can be a couple different phases. Yeah. Like you could have the assembly phase, you're putting everything together. I am more of a fan, and I'll say I think either of these work, but it's important for you to figure out which type of person you are. Yep. So some people prefer the assemble everything method, right? Where you're like sort of what I think, Steve, what you do, right? You assemble and convert everything. You have the army more or less ready. Then you move on to the painting phase, right? So you've got kind of phase.
That's pretty much, that's it.
For myself, I go one unit at a time. Now, again, both of us started with a complete conception of, you know, what we wanted the final thing to look like, right? Like we know where we're going. But for me, I literally will I'll buy the boxes. I open one box. I take out the sprues, clip, clean, assemble, prime, paint on the shelf.
Yep.
That unit is done. Next box.
So
right?
Admittedly, that's how I did it for my Wood Elf army. And then when I got to the Rats and Hats project, that my process changed. I did my Wood Elves exactly as you described, Vince. That's how I did it early on. And then my process evolved.
Yep. And it's not like one of those is wrong.
No, there is no right or wrong.
Yeah, it's just finding the one that works better for you. Because what I found is when all I do is assemble for a long time, I burn out. And it leads me to stop working.
Yes.
And so I put the thing away or I stop working on it. The key is you've got to find the strategy that's going to make that's going to work how you want to work.
Right.
So for me, mine's a little bit different than both of yours.
Okay.
Like I have full conception.
Yep.
I know where I'm going. I'll do a test model just to make sure proof of concept. Like when I started these guys, I did a single Firesire Archanaut. Like, is this the look I want? Yes. Color scheme, everything. Awesome. Go. So then what I do is I went through and I bought I don't normally do this, but for KO, I bought everything. I bought every single box that I'm planning on doing for my entire army. And it's sitting right there.
Okay.
Nope. Sorry.
All of them are right there. Okay. And so they're staring at me. And so what I did was sorry, I'm knocking some of finished models on the floor, breaking mohawks off. I would go through and I've crafted probably 30 lists for KO of different things. And I find a list that I really like and of an event that I'm planning on taking it to. And then what I do is I go unit by unit through that list and I paint everything for a list.
Yep. Sure.
And then once I have an army, a playable army, then I'll go on and look at my next list that I like the most. And I'll begin painting down that list. So then I'll identify what I have done and what I need to get to that next list. And so I paint by my lists that I've created rather than by, an
individual unit or sure.
Yeah. So one thing I don't want us to skip past, if I may.
Yeah, sure.
So we the three of us have talked about proof of concept, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So one of the things, what that means for people who might not understand, that's you build the model, you convert the model if you're converting, then you paint the model. And then during that painting process, as you figure out what your scheme's going to be, you create your recipe, your paint recipe, you write it down. You don't rely on yourself to remember it. You have to write it down somewhere once you have your proof of concept. Because if you don't do that, as you get burned out and you take a break and then you come back, you won't remember. So the recipe is important. I think Vince is about to hold up something for.
Yes, my wife got me my newest recipe book. I won't turn it. Here you go. I'll cover this. My wife got me this. It has a curse word on the front because she laughed at that. And so, and I keep this next to me, right? So this is like an easy thing to do. I'll say also another thing I do is I will take a picture of a collection of paints that achieve an effect I like on my phone and then save it into an album, a particular album that is all like painting recipes and name it what that thing is. Yeah. Right.
That's good. So, that's a good one. I don't do that. My recipe is all in my Google Docs. So then I have that with me at all times. So like I find that very convenient because even on my phone, I can reference it on my phone. So if I hear something, like if I'm listening to a podcast like Facehammer or something like that, and Russ is going into the latest scale color that he likes, I can jot it down, make a note, put it in my Google Doc for my paint recipes. But paint recipes are pretty important. And then that kind of talks about when you get to the whole batch painting process, like when you're doing, when we're sitting down, okay, so like you build it doesn't matter how you do it, but let's just say, for example, I mean, GHB 2 is coming out this weekend. So we're going to have, hey, massive regiments, right? So we're talking about being in a world again where we're going to be painting 40 models and more than likely 80, right? Because you might have 2 units of 40 of whatever that is at those great point discounts. So one of the tricks that I found, okay, to speed the process up is the batch painting. Right. You're going through, so you line everything up, and then hey, back in 8th edition it was great. You could line everything up in your regiment on your movement tray and keep everything organized and see exactly who you're painting and going through the steps. Okay, so I'm going to paint all the flesh, and I'm going to go down the line with the base coats all the way down the line across everybody so that I have that consistency, right? So if when you're batch painting, if you skip the batch painting process, I feel you're doing yourself a disservice, because you're gonna, as somebody who judges paint, if that's your thing, okay, so if your thing is that you want to compete on for painting awards or hobby awards, you can tell when there's not that consistency across the board, like when you're really looking at it. So the batch painting will help you with that. It'll help you to make sure that all of your, if you're going for a uniform look, if you've got free peoples and you want to paint them all in the same scheme, you're going to have that consistency and you're going to hit all those points on the model so that you have that look and feel, that uniformity throughout your entire army.
Yeah, and here's the other thing about that, because it kind of ties into what I wanted to say, which is, Tom, you mentioned lists. Yeah. And classically, one of the big motivators for people to get stuff painted are events, right? Yep. How many times have we seen on Twitter or Facebook or whatever, somebody saying, speed painting for an event, right? Or something like that, okay? Now, I think that's perfectly fine. It'd be better if you weren't doing it right at the end of the event and stressing yourself. But like using an event as a motivator is good, because all that is that standing in as a proxy goal setter. It's like a spotter to keep your eye on the prize, right? Mm-hmm. And to me, those kind of goals, let's say you're not going to a tournament or you don't have a particular list you're aiming at, right? That's okay. You can invent your own goals. Yep. Right. And I do that all the time. I'm like, okay, so I want to get to have my battle line done. Okay, that's a micro goal, right? Right. Or I want to have this particular leader done, or I want to be able to fill out a 500-point army, or whatever, right? Like there's a bunch of different ways you can do this. Yep. Okay. But setting up those micro goals can be a great way to, like, it's the little bit of reward of, like, you set a micro goal for yourself, you achieve it, and you're like, yes, I did it. I got my thing. And the batch painting really feeds into that, right? Because you're like, I want to get a whole unit done. So you and batch painting like 40 halberdiers or 40 whatever let's be honest, not the most fun thing in the universe. But you get done, you're done. You've done this big, giant unit. It's finished. You get that overwhelming sense of accomplishment. You set your micro goal to finish it, and then you can move on. Yeah. I think I also like, for that reason, I like interspersing.
Definitely.
Sort of like oftentimes I find when I set my micro goals, I'll set a big one and a small one and a big one and a small one.
Yeah,
right?
I was just going to go into that.
That's exactly what I've been doing. That's so funny that you say that.
You finish 40, you finish 40, a unit of 40, then paint a hero. Reward yourself and paint a hero or something.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
You alternate, right? Small elite unit of 3 dudes or a single hero or whatever. Then you go back to another 40 and so on.
Yeah.
Change it up like that. Not only does it let you, and let's be honest, it also lets you play with your paint a little differently, right? Because if all you're doing is like the same scheme, it's going to become rote. It can't not be, right?
Yeah.
But when you're talking about like, let's talk about like I'll mention the Slaves to Darkest thing you were doing, right? If all I was doing was like Chaos Warrior, Chaos Warrior, Chaos Knight, Chaos Knight, Chaos Warrior, Chaos Warrior, it would be very rote because those guys are very similar, right?
Yep.
You mix in like a Slaughter Brute or a Mutilith Vortex Beast.
That's what I did. I did the Brute. Yeah. Right.
All of a sudden, that guy's totally different. Lots of flesh, interesting face, and organic parts going on. It could not be further to the left of the rest of those models. So suddenly you're doing something that feels different. And you're finishing a big chunk of points too. Let's not lie. That's awesome. You're like, boom, 200 points.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Whammo,
Exactly.
one model.
Right. And I had that same exact experience. That's why I painted the Slaughter Brew for him, and that's why I painted the Demon Prince. It was that break. It was that reward for doing all of those warriors. You know,
right.
It's just like, oh god. And then I actually was working on the Knights, like you said, and it was only 5. And it almost broke me because I just hated painting them, and I had to paint the Brute instead. So yeah, that's great. Reward yourself for sure. Yeah.
You know what? One other note I'll say on the micro goals is I always save my favorite model in the army for last.
Yeah, I've done that too.
So like when I did the Sylvaneth, Alariel sat on the shelf, untouched.
Yeah, I'm looking at her right now.
Yeah, there she is. Yeah. Hold on. There you go. We'll lock on. I can see her in the background right there. Yes, like I think that like certainly to me this is the case. I don't know if other people feel this. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But certain big, beautiful models like that are a reward. They're a joy to paint. And realistically, you're probably going to paint one of them in your whole life, right? I mean, that's
that model.
Of that model, yes. Like you're not going to probably do multiple Alariels, probably.
Unless you're Vince and you're going to do multiple Archeons.
That is true. I will do multiple Archeons. It's coming. The host of Slanesh may just have inspired that. Anyways, not here or there. So but saving a big model like that, like when I finished that last unit and I knew, like as I was doing the last couple units and I knew that Alariel was waiting on the other side as I could get to her, I was giddy, right? Like I was so excited to crack that box and get to working on her. So having something that you think is going to be fun and big and splashy and centerpiecey or awesome or something you've been looking forward to and saving it till the end as you're sort of, it's the dessert at the end of the meal.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, I noticed as you were describing that, Vince, I was looking at my rats and hats in the case, and then even with thinking about how I'm progressing on the Sylvaneth, I like to slug through those kind of rank and file troops and then save all the good stuff, all the elites, all of the really, beautiful sculpts. I save those for the end. I really do. I just kind of like say, okay, just power through, buckle down, power through, get through these, 30 dryads and now, another 30 dryads and get through those so that I can enjoy painting my 12 hunters and my tree lords and all those great models, and then eventually Alariel. So yeah, that's awesome. That's the way I think. I mean, I've painted 9 finished armies over a few game systems. So that's Warhammer Fantasy, that's 40K, that's Lord of the Rings, that's Infinity. And what I've noticed is that the joy really comes like when you power through, getting through all that stuff to move on to the fun model. That's really a motivating factor for me as I'm looking around my hobby room and I'm looking at the armies, thinking about how I was able to get through those armies and get them done. It was to get to those next, there's always that unit or model in my army that was the motivating factor to get all the other stuff done, actually. Sylvanet with the rats and hats, it was the bell boat. And then, with my wood elves, it actually turned out to be that conversion of the wild riders that I did.
Yeah.
So yeah,
which are a super fun model, by the way, to paint. I loved. I have like a Sister of the Thorn unit and a Wild Rider unit, and they were both just immense fun to paint. So
yeah. So the other thing that for when you're talking hobby, you're talking about how can you get faster at what you're doing and get better at what you're doing. One of the some of my thoughts on that. Mine has really evolved over time. The first thing is like I've learned to try a lot of different paint ranges, number one. So I don't just stick to Citadel. I move around to different manufacturers, similar to you, Vince. And one of the things that I found recently is that I'm primarily painting using airbrush paint with my brush. The reason being is that I'm speed painting my son's army, and I want something that's already thinned down, that I don't have to really do. That I don't have to thin it. I don't have to. And I went to art school, so I understand thinning. I understand, I understand color theory and all that stuff. So when I started to paint with just the airbrush paint, I found it very, very liberating for myself. Okay, and this isn't. Not everybody is going to see it that way, because the paint is very translucent when you're painting it when you're using a brush.
I love it.
So and so so I've kind of gone now where I'm not even. You can see behind me here that huge rack over here, which is just all mostly the majority of it is Vallejo game color, model color, and then you have some some Citadel and some Reaper paints, and I'm hardly touching them anymore. I'm using my scale color, and then all of my Minotaur airbrush paints, which is on the other wall, and I'm surprised that I didn't discover it sooner. That I didn't say to myself, "Wow, do I really need to spend all this time thinning down my paint? I can just I can just charge right in and do all of my one brush wet blending." So I think what I'm trying to say is experiment, because then you're going to find ways to increase your speed, which will then allow you to paint more armies to a higher level if that's what you're going for, and then get your projects done. So the experimentation, finding those new ways to do things is going to be helpful.
Yeah, I agree totally. I mean, we all know my #1 hobby tip for speed, right? I mean, I want it on my freaking tombstone, and that is everybody should be zenithal priming. If you're not zenithal priming, what are you doing? Right? Like, that's just stop painting over black, people. Stop killing yourselves. Every time I see somebody say it's really hard to paint red or yellow or orange or something,
and you're like, you're priming over black.
You're painting over straight black, aren't you? Because if you were painting over a zenithal color scheme, it would not be hard. It would be very easy. It turns difficult colors easy. It builds in highlights. And look, realistically, using something like this has become in vogue as a name called sketch style, right? But there's a lot of different methods of achieving this, painting with washes and inks alone and stuff like that. Yeah. Or all these things you can do over a zenithal prime that for most people's tabletop armies
are more than enough.
It's more than enough, and it's going to look great.
Yeah, 100%.
My Glotkin was done basically with like washes and airbrushes.
Right, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I was at a tournament in Minnesota not too long ago, and I had the rats and hats up there, and a guy was asking me about the metal and how I was able to do the transitions and have it so thin. And he was talking about how he's always fighting with Citadel paint because it's so thick. So when you thin it, the metal flakes, they disperse, right? So if you ever took a drop of water and you put it in the straight paint out of the pot, you're going to have an issue with that. And that's because there are tiny flakes of metal in there, right, to achieve those effects. So if you're using the metal paints, like what I showed them, to use the air color from Vallejo metal.
Yeah.
Because it just goes on so smooth.
Like,
and then
are you talking about air color or metal color?
Air color.
Well, let's just say right now, throw out every other metal paint you have and go buy Vallejo metal color. There you go.
Right here. Yeah.
I've used that as well. Yes.
Every other
metal.
This is for acrylic.
Yeah.
I will stand behind this. I will, there is a video coming that is going to be a direct comparison of every metal paint on the market, because I own them all. I've tried them all, and I will tell you that this is beyond anything else out there.
Yeah.
So,
so
they're gold as crap, but
the idea is that if you want to speed up, right, you have to be open to change. And if you're not open-minded, okay, to exploring other paint ranges, you're really doing yourself a disservice. Okay, I mean, the Citadel colors are great, and we love GW. We love what they do, but I've found, even myself, I find them sometimes to be you're fighting the paint. Yeah. So explore other ranges, find what works for you, and you'll speed yourself up. The other thing too is that I have this thing that I've been telling my friends and clubmates is like, don't worry about painting between the lines when you're base coating. I think that right there, the base coating part of painting is such a laborious thing. Even if even if you have your airbrush, you still have to do some type of base coating when it comes down to, you lay in that maybe all of that gold, but then you still have to go in there and you have to put base coats on things like the belt and the swords and all the other things that you got to pull. Right. You pull out all the details, right? I find that, like with my boys, and then even with my clubmates, when they fail to get something done, a lot of times it's because they're spending so much time trying to paint within the lines. Don't get any paint on that little pouch right there. Well, you can cover up some of those things when you wash the model down, when you shade it down. You're going to cover up some of those biffs that you get. So be a little bit more, don't be so hard on yourself when you're doing your base coat. It doesn't have to be totally perfect, because you're going to build up color and you're going to hide all those imperfections, and nobody will ever see it. And then I see so many times where people just can't seem to get past that. Well, why doesn't it look all clean and neat? Well, it's not going to. You're painting something
start that way.
Small. Right. So.
Yeah, let me say something real quick. I completely agree. Anybody who's ever watched James Wapple paint, he paints, he base coats with a size 8 brush. Yeah. Okay, and it's messy as all get out. Because here's the thing. People try to put on perfect base coats because they think that's going to lead to a perfect model. Just your base coats are never going to look good on a model by themselves. Period. End of story. Full stop. Right. But if you just do get them on fast and spend the dividend of time working on shades and highlights, you will spend the same total amount of time that you did trying to get a perfect base coat that isn't going to amount to anything, and have a much better model in the end. Right. Exactly. Now, I want to answer a question from the comment real quick on the Vallejo metal color, which was, how do you get it to be even? The answer is you shake the living bejesus out of it. I put little metal non-ferrous agitators in mine. I would recommend the same. You can also get little agitators from War Colors. They look like this. They work very well. And I shake the crap out of it before I put any out on my palette, and I get a consistent color every time. So there was a question about how to get consistency out of there. All metal paint is subject to separation because, as you mentioned, Steve, metal paint is actually metal flakes, aluminum, mica, a few other types of elements and stuff like that. And so because it's heavier, it is literally a heavy metal in most cases, it will separate out from the medium. So shaking is real important.
Go ahead, Vince. Are you going to say something else?
No, I was just going to say I completely agree with you on the base coat thing. Like the amount of time I see people wasting on like perfect base coats, don't do it. Right. It's good.
What
I'm not telling you to attack it with a size 8 like James Wobble. He's one of the best artists in the world. He can do that.
Use a size 2.
Yeah, but just like use a bigger brush. You know, be as neat as is reasonable. But when you go over,
I base coat everything with a size 2 or a 3.
Right.
And it's fine. And then every once in a while, yeah, I hit something and I have a problem, and but then I, it gets cleaned up in the shading. The other thing I wanted to talk about with increasing speed, okay? So the rats and hats, okay? When I did them, the individual bases, okay? When it comes down to when you're basing your model, like the prototypical thing is like, okay, I'm going to put some sand or some kind of gravelly bits on here, right? So you have your base, and then you put your sand on there, and then you glue it down with some PVA and blah blah blah, and you do all this stuff, and then you have to wait for it to dry and so on and so forth. Well, one of the things that I started to move away from that, like I don't put sand on my bases anymore. I just use Vallejo texture. I use their ground texture stuff that they have, stuff like this, which is the thick mud stuff. Yep. This stuff is great. It's pumice, basically, right? So the beauty of it is, and this is where we talk about speed, okay? So like this one right here, the dark mud, or the thick mud, and it's the brown thick mud. It dries with kind of a wet look to it, okay? So then you've got your soil, you've got your flow, you've got your natural texture. And I think, Vince, you've done a hobby cheating thing, and you've mentioned these products before. Yep. That saves you a ton of time. Okay, so you don't have to worry about the whole sand thing, the whole putting play sand down and doing that whole thing. You get that rough undulating texture right here, and it's colored for you. Okay, and then once it dries, you can dry brush it up if you want different shades of brown in there. Okay, yep. So find those kind of tricks too, because that's going to speed up especially when you're talking about a whole army, because when you're talking about hundreds of models for your army. And now with General's Handbook 2, we're going to be seeing that again. We're going to see armies 100+ models easily. And so even in General Handbook 1, my Verminous clan was over 100 models, okay? And I would have got them to the table a hell of a lot faster if I would have just embraced this earlier. It would have sped things up considerably. So I think that when you take a look at your bases too, I think sometimes people, like when you're trying to get through a project, some people, I do it, I invest a lot of time in my bases. I want my bases to have a consistent look and theme across the entire army, but that's not necessary to have a really fantastic looking army. It's just the ground. And so go ahead, Tom.
Well, what I would say is that if you put some time into thinking through it, you can do very nice bases that are consistent, that are very quick and very cheap.
Yes.
So,
for sure.
So I always theme my bases to my army, and so the bases are to me as important as the army itself.
Yeah.
And so when I did Nurgle, I wanted like Nurgle Wasteland, and so I just grabbed that mud. Mm-hmm. And like one trick that Vince taught me very early on was to keep all of your like vacuum pack, like the clam
packs. Yeah, your clam
packs, and any of the flat areas, cut them all out. So I have this container here of all of this is literally just cut out clam packs from my kids' toys and from everything else. Mm-hmm. And what I do is I'll cut circles out of this and make pools for my toxic bases. Or if I'm doing any type of basing, like if I want water, I'll glue this down to the base and then mud around it.
Right.
It's amazing because it creates a very flat, completely flat surface to do like water and stuff like that, especially for my Nurgle if I'm doing stagnant pools. But realistically, if you wanted anything like that that's not wavy, but like still liquid, it's super easy to do.
Yep.
And so like my bases are like glue that down, mud everything over, prime over all of it, done.
Yep.
Like, and then at the end, I might put some little tufts of like Mordheim turf or something like that to kind of give a little, another color other than brown and green from the toxic pools. That's one way. Right now, what I'm doing for my fire slayers is I'm doing lava bases, and like GW did these wonderful tutorials about like, do your base, and like Duncan walks it through in 3 minutes about how to do lava bases using their mud. And guess what? It works, and they look good.
Right.
You know, that's what I did for the Thunderers. And you know how much time I spend on these bases? Like 5 minutes, maybe. And they end up looking very nice. So you can do very nice, somewhat seemingly complex bases very, very quickly. If you put a little bit of time on the outset, on the front end, and figure out what the theme is for your army and what that base is going to look like.
Yeah, that's all great stuff, Tom. I want to maybe mention something somebody asked with in the comments. Somebody said that they still prime their models with a brush. You know, I used to do that too. In fact, all my models, I've been on the receiving end of the accelerant devouring an entire unit of dryads and just like being gutted. So I used to prime everything using a brush, but now you know, in order to because there are so many projects that I want to get through, I realized I need to speed things up. So I started to Zenithal prime, like Vince said earlier. Zenithal priming really does speed things up. I highly recommend it. There's a lot of tutorials out there, a lot of YouTube examples. Vince even does one in his hobby cheating. So it's a great way to speed you up. And if you're new to army painting, I highly recommend you take a shot at it. The concept of, you know, blowing, like for example, somebody asked about just airbrushing all the way through all metal, right? Over an entire, you know, like if you're doing Stormcast, you know, airbrushing them all gold. Yeah, you could do that. It totally works. There's no right or wrong. I just find it faster because then what I see with the Zenithal is I see the highlights. I know exactly where the light source is coming from. I can then, when I'm brushing on my gold, right? If it's thin, or well, in the case of my Stormcast, silver, it shows the highlights through, right? And that just speeds me up because then I'm not worrying about shadowing and highlighting because I'm getting that, I'm jumping ahead. So that's what we were referring to earlier.
Yeah, and let me quick touch on the metal thing and Zenithal with metals, because a lot of times, like for all metal things, Stormcast is a great example. Iron Warriors, Space Marines would be another great example. People think, well, I want Zenithal because it's not, I'll just do straight metal over the whole thing, like out of a rattle can.
Right.
All right. If you have an airbrush and you can do this, don't just shoot them all one color. Instead, make the Zenithal in your metals. So I'll give you an easy example. Here's Vallejo metal color gunmetal gray, which is a very, very dark, muted steel. It has a slight blue tint to it. Love it. One of my favorite colors. This is Vallejo black ink. So I'm going to start and I'm going to prime them. I'll prime the model with actual primers. I'll just shoot it straight black. Then I'll 100% cover my Stormcast with a mix of these two. Yeah. Then I'll shoot it with just this at like a 45-degree angle where there'd be gray. Then I'll shoot it with just this, which is like dark aluminum. Whatever that, yeah, that's what's in my hand. Dark aluminum at a high angle. Then I'll take some silver, which is the super highlight color, and I'll hit like top of the head, top of the head, top of the muscles. Yep. Done.
Shoulder pads. Yep.
Do that, and you will get a flat. You'll get like a beautiful, smooth steel gradient that looks done. Like you're done.
Yep.
Right there. Like you could go in and pick out a couple edges, but for all steel models, it is stupid how good it looks. Like it's ridiculous. I've painted many like all metal. I used it for like some metal gaming and stuff in Malifaux, and I loved it. And you know, then all you're doing is going in and picking out like the shoulder pads and you know whatever, right? The halves and things like that. Yeah. So there you go. You can shift the concept of Zenithal around to different things, right? It doesn't always necessarily have to be just black paint, gray paint, white paint.
Right. Yeah, totally. I mean, that's exactly what I've been doing with the Stormcast at the moment. So yeah, no, it's totally right. Go ahead. So
here's what I want to say next. We talked a lot about speeding up. Let's talk about slowing down for a moment.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because both are valid. When is the right time to slow down? Okay, I think it's an important thing to answer, because for this, in the same way, if all you do is speed paint, again, you can get burnt the same way you will if all you do is unit paint, right, and stuff like that. So it's mixing it up. For me, like slowing down is a matter of finding those characters, those models, or maybe even a whole army. Like if you're on your 5th or 6th army, or if there's an army that really grabs you aesthetically, right? If like you mentioned, Steve, like something just grabbed you, set its hooks in deep. The sculpts grab you, the fluff grabs you, the rules grab you. Like you look at this and you're like, I'm all in for this. And you've already got multiple armies, like you're not rushing to get them on the table. Maybe it's the time to slow down, right? Maybe it's the time to take some extra time and create something that you're really going to be invested in and proud of. If you're already 5, 6 armies in, you probably don't need to speed paint a 7th if you're actively still playing those first 5 or 6.
Sure.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's the approach I'm taking with my Sylvaneth and my Dr. Dooms. I have no rush to get them done. I've established some deadlines just to keep me motivated, but I'm not going to break the army. And by break, I mean, you know, move away from my goal of taking it to the highest possible level, just to get it done. Because like you said, I have the armies that I can play. I mean, I have plenty of rats and I have plenty of wood elves, wanderers that I can play. So the goal is not to rush through it, but to take my time. So it's when you find that, on that larger scale, when you find that project, right, that you want to invest the love and time and energy into. But then if you are speed painting an army, okay, and you want to get it done quick, I think you should slow down when it comes to your heroes, when it comes to your leader, your showcase model. Invest the time. Yeah, and you should invest the time there because that's where your skills improve. Because you're not really going to improve your skills speed painting all the time. Because you'll constantly do kind of like I don't want to call it lazy, but you'll take the shortest, you'll take every shortcut there is. I think that when you're getting to your heroes and you get to your leader, you should slow down and take your time. I think you should slow down and take even when you're speed painting, when it comes time to calling out the tiny bits, that's when you slow down. You know, you get everything done and then you've got it highlighted to a point where you want it to be highlighted, but then you go back in and you're going to call out those little details, the fangs on the rats or the eyeballs, and you know, go back and just hit those little tiny details and take a little bit more time and care in that, and it'll pay dividends when you see it on the table. People will be like, oh my gosh, you painted all of those, you know, every single rat's got red eyes, or you put a little line in between each tooth, oh my god, or in between the front teeth. It's those little things that when you start to slow down and look at the army and you see those little details, then you're going to want to go to the next one, right? You're going to say to yourself, oh wow, you know, I put that little line in between those teeth. Maybe I want to go a little bit and do something else with this fur, you know, or this little detail in this pouch. And before you know it, you're suddenly you're calling out all the little details.
And it's those steps that actually will get your armies noticed at at events for like painting competitions, because they'll see that you did the teeth. They'll see that you went in and like very carefully did shadowing around the eye or whatever.
When I took second place in paint at the Masters, one of the judges came up and he was looking at the rats and hats and he said, do you mind if I pick up your model? And I said, yeah, no problem. Pick them all up. You know, they're toys. You can pick them up. And he was picking it up and he flipped it upside down. And I'm like, I've never seen anybody do that before. And he goes, yeah, when I judge, I want to see if you paint underneath as well. Yep. And I was, and then after that, I was just kind of like, oh wow. I'm like, okay. And he said, yeah. He goes, at the year before, I guess, at the first Masters, they had some during the paint judging, they had some painters who didn't paint, you know, underneath, you know, because it's regiments, everything was there. They didn't go to the next step. So, and I think that happened at a paint competition too. I have some memory of that happening at, was it maybe Cool Mini competition where the back side of the model wasn't painted? Yeah, right. So the my point to that was it was the idea of me, you know, when you're being judged on your paint, if you're going to an event that puts a high focus on that, on the hobby and stuff, you should take that time, because to Tom's point, it will be seen. You know, the judges pick up the models and they really look at them, and when they're doing that, they're going to see the love and care if you go in and you call out some of those details.
Yep. And again, that goes back to setting those initial expectations,
yes,
right?
Right.
Like, yeah, through it, like if you know that's not what you're competing for, don't paint that crap.
Yeah, don't bother, right? Yeah.
Like, just leave it blank. Who cares? If it can't be
Yep.
seen, don't bother with it.
Yep.
Like, but know that's what you're aiming at and where you're going to be, right? And so again, it goes back to, yeah, like set your expectations early and then paint to it.
Yeah.
Yep. I agree. All right. Well, I think, you know, we've gone about almost 2.5 hours here, and I feel like we've shared a lot of good thoughts. This is good. This has been great. Is there Steve, any one final tip you want to leave with everybody when it comes to their hobbying for their, you know, their new armies in general?
Yeah. People ask me about how I come up with the conversions I do.
Yep.
Okay, so you have to look for kit opportunities, and so when you're looking at a kit and you're inspired to do a conversion for something, what you need to do is you need to look at, you know, first of all, it goes back to what we talked about earlier about your inspiration, your fluff, and then how you're going to kit bash something. Never ever give away your bits. Okay. Yep. Never give away your bits. Don't sell them, keep them, because those are what you're going to use to get you started on your first conversions. Okay. And don't look only to Age of Sigmar. Okay. If you're going to be doing a kit bash, you might find something in 40K orcs that's going to fit well on that rat ogre that you have on the bow of your bell boat. Okay. That fits in. Or on your Doom Trike, you might have that bit from a 40K from 40K orcs on the back of that Doom Trike. So don't limit yourself to just looking at GW range AOS. You know, go outside and look outside that, right? So there's 40K elements that are trickled into my conversions, 40K bits that are trickled into my conversions. My Stormcast, they use the feathered wings of the Scourge, Dark Eldar Scourges, and then learn to sculpt. It seems intimidating. It is very intimidating in the beginning, but if you invest $30 to $40 in some silicone clay shapers, okay, they will be your best friend when you're attempting to learn how to sculpt. I can't recommend them enough. I have a bunch of them right here. Okay, they're available online. They're available at Blick. Okay, these things are awesome. All my sculpting, I primarily use these all the time, and I have them in multiple sizes. I have them in the large, so I have right here. I'll show you a size comparison. So right here, okay. I don't know if you can see that.
Yep.
Okay, the shapers here. Okay. Yep. These tools are a godsend. The silicone shapers, they will not stick to the resins that you work with, to the green stuff that you're working with. And then if you do have that occasional, because you've mixed it in a way that the resin is a little bit too sticky, what I tend to do is I use a little drop of hand lotion. I'll put it right here on my fist, and then as I'm holding the Minnie in my hand, okay, so if I was sculpting, I'd be holding the Minnie in my hand like this, and so I can easily dip the shaper into the lotion to smooth things out so that it won't stick. Okay, so that's my last bit. We didn't delve much into the conversion talk, but clay shapers, get them, and you'll get better at sculpting.
Nice.
Do you want to answer the question?
Yeah, I'll do two things. One, I totally agree with what Steve just said. Two, Joe Orteza, if anybody knows who this is, I'll put the link to his site down in the show notes. Joe runs an awesome series of tutorials at conventions called Lose the Fear with Green Stuff, where he will teach you how to do basic green stuff sculpting. He'll teach you about the basic shapes, and you will walk away with a set of those tools. that he just shared, by the by. Yeah. He gives you a set of both the metal and the silicone tools in the class. So do recommend. Joe's an awesome dude. I'll link his blog because he has all sorts of basic tutorials on there too. So there you go. That's like, if you can't get over the fear on your own or by reading, go to a convention. He teaches at AdeptCon, at Gen Con, at Nova, at everywhere. Like he at ReaperCon, and you know, like, he'll get you over the hump. He shows you just how simple some of this stuff is. So I'll answer the question in the comments. For models painted for competitions, do you put varnish on, or do you wait until after the competition, or never? The answer is yes, sometimes, as with everything for competition. If any kind of real metal paint is used, then I do not varnish it, because you don't want to knock the shine out of your real metal paint. If I need to varnish it to knock shine out of paint that got too thin and got inappropriately glossy, on competition models, metals, true metallic metals, if they're going to be there, are always the last thing you do, so that way you can still varnish the model up until the end. Okay. Okay.
He was asking specifically about with relation to armies, not necessarily like competition painting per se.
If there is, if we're talking about for a whole army, I mean, like, I never paint an army specific for a competition, right? Like, you want to win best painted, but I would still varnish your army. Your army is going to get used, but I would like, if you can do it before you put the metals on each unit, I would still recommend it. Like, if you're batch painting, do everything that isn't metal. Testers dull coat the thing, then put your metals on. I find that's usually the best way to go for that.
Okay. I have never varnished a Minnie.
Sure. I mean, you don't really have to. Most paints are tough now, but I do like, but Tester's dull coat is a great way to knock inappropriate shine off of matte paints. Okay.
Yep.
So there you go. Tom, final tip from you. Anything you want to share?
Don't touch. No, you guys are both going to hate this. And I accept that because you guys are superior hobbyists than I am. My piece of advice is don't touch the Minnie too many times with your brush. And what I mean by that is I aim, this is going to be heresy, I aim to touch every part of the model only 3 times. And like, Steve, do my paint jobs look bad?
No, they don't look bad. They don't look bad.
I know that this, again, this is heresy, but for a beginning paint, this is my advice to beginning painters, new painters. And you can listen to Vince and Steve and totally dismiss what I'm about to tell you, but I try to only touch, you know, like, obviously it's more than 3 times, but like hypothetically 3 times. After everything's been zenithal, I'll base coat it, I'll wash it, and then I'll highlight it back up. That's it. Normally there's 3 layers, 3 shades to every piece of coloration on my model. Glow effects, I'll go up to about 7 different layers, but most things I only touch 3 times. And what it will let you do is at least get a nice, like a very high quality tabletop look down. Now, if you want to go back in later and do all your detail, now all this to say, like, I still do all my eyeballs. I still do all of my details on all of my models. So I'm not missing any details when I'm doing this. But any one part, I only touch 3 times. And I've scored fairly high at the various painting competitions, and like, as part of, like, I won the hobby,
sure.
the Hammer Hobbyist, Hammer Hobbyist at Holy Wars this year, based on this touching it 3 times. When I went to NashCon, I placed 3rd. Bench placed 1st. I placed 3rd for my army. And again, it was the same thing. Touch everything 3 times. So
yeah, but I mean, Tom, I mean, you're touching everything 3 times. It's not like you're just touching the model 3 times only.
Yes,
okay?
And no, yeah, so yes, absolutely.
You know, depending on your
every bag, every skull, every eye,
everything.
Yeah, right. 3 times. Okay. Right.
And so, but you don't have to do like Vince's 100. Like, never ask Vince what paints he used or how he painted X piece of armor. Don't do it, because he'll walk you through the 28 steps that he did to make that and to create that effect.
Well, Tom, but Tom, there's a difference, right? So I mean,
there is.
Vince is painting.
Yep.
Vince is painting the way he paints everything.
He is.
Okay. So he's not thinking. He's thinking in terms of, and that's kind of the curse that Vince and I kind of live with in a way.
Yep.
You know, like my, you know, my I can remember, I think the first army I ever won a painting award with was my Wood Elves.
Yep.
And that, you know, looking at that army, I'm like, good God, how did that win an award? Because I'm like, you know, I'm like, I don't know. And so the thing is, and this isn't something that everybody aspires to. Everybody doesn't aspire to win multiple awards at Gen Con or to win best painted at events. And you don't need to. So what you're saying is totally accurate, but I mean, it doesn't diminish how Vince is approaching it.
Not
either.
at all.
It doesn't.
Not at all.
I mean,
like we are doing two different things, and this is what I said. I'm aiming this at young painters, at new painters who are like, I can never paint that.
Yeah. And Vince,
a lot of what has been offered has been advanced level painting.
Sure.
So
no, you're right. You're totally right.
My tips are aimed at those people who have just started in the last 3 to 6 months. Or maybe, you know, maybe they're just starting their second army. They got paint on their first army.
Mm-hmm.
My advice is just commit to something simple. Touch everything 3 times. And if you do that, you're actually going to have a really nicely painted army. Without going too far. Now, if, again, you want to go back in and you want to layer something 100 times and hit all the, you know, transitions, great, do that. Sure. But you don't have to. And it's going to look great on the tabletop.
Yeah.
So start with what you can do, and then look at what the next step is and do that thing.
Hey, Vince, I want to counter your point on varnish for a moment.
Sure.
You know, for my armies, I do varnish them. I totally hear what you're saying with regards to metals, for sure. You know, I can tell you there's been many times where I varnish something and then I have to go back and retouch up some of those metals. But the reason I varnish my armies is because I play with them all the time. Sure. And so the varnish does help protect the paint from rubbing off. So if you really use your armies a lot, you're going to want to protect them from the wear and tear of gameplay. I mean, the oils in our skin really does affect the paint over time. And so you will have paint come off of your models, and you'll have to, you'll have to touch those things up. So the varnish helps with that. You don't have as much of a problem with them anymore now that, you know, there's a move towards obviously more, you know, less metal on the table in terms of models.
Mm-hmm.
But the varnish does help. It helps with drops and things like that in chips and those things. So
no, it's totally fair. And like I said, I do generally varnish my models. I just do it before the metal. But yes, like certainly the difference between needing to varnish a plastic and a metal model, like I can't imagine doing a metal model without multiple coats of like dull coat on there.
Oh yeah.
Otherwise it's going to chip, period, end of story.
As you're painting it.
Yeah. I mean, I've got a whole video on why I hate metal models. They're utter crap, and I wish that they would go away and never be existing again. So anyway, so there we go. That's what I'll end that on. All right. So for everybody out there, thank you very much for watching. Steve, buddy, an absolute pleasure as always.
Thanks.
We're going to have Steve back on as we approach and get very close to Holy Havoc. So, yes, there will be a follow-up episode, a Holy Havoc primer, very close to the event. So look forward to that. I know I'm very excited about the event.
Vince, what army are you painting for that event?
No clue. So I mean, we'll find out, man. Who knows? So don't forget, next week's show will be very late after the GW seminar at Nova. So look for that about probably 11-ish p.m. Eastern time. But as to everybody out there, thank you very much for watching. We certainly appreciate it. And as always, we'll see you next Wednesday.